Welcome to r/Am I the Jerk, where Karen's got a plan to make some money, but her husband's not so convinced it's gonna work. Am I the jerk for calling my wife delusional for her looks maxing? I, 34 male, and my wife, who's 29, have been married for 3 years. After getting married, we moved to another state, and she has since remained unemployed. Now, my wife has more or less given up on finding work. The primary issue is that she can't find something that meets her standards despite several businesses in our area actively hiring. This wasn't a problem at first, but since inflation has outpaced my raises, money is tight. It doesn't help that my wife orders takeout very often. A few months back, she approached me saying that she has had a plan for making some money on the side. I figured it would be some simple entry-level work-from-home job, but she told me that she was going to start looks maxing and in a few months start a cosplay Patreon. I didn't know anything about looks maxing at the time, but I did know that most women who have successful cosplay Patreons are thin. My wife, standing 5'2" and weighing 220, is not. I kind of assumed that she would start dieting and exercise. I basically told her that if she wanted to start a journey of self-improvement, I would be happy to encourage her, but I also emphasized that she shouldn't rely on a crapshoot like Patreon for money. She clearly didn't listen, as over the past 3 months, she's been obsessively looks maxing, and her version of this is spending too much money on makeup and skincare regimens while continuing to eat takeout and staying sedentary. She spends so much time watching makeup tutorials and TikToks about how to make yourself more attractive. After 3 months of this, I had already reached my limit with her, which has led to several arguments. But today, while I was at work, I got a notification from my bank that she had withdrawn $450 out of our joint account. I called her immediately and she didn't answer. I texted her and she didn't see it. I then told my boss I had to go home due to an emergency and I left the office immediately. When I walked in the door, I found her in the living room. I asked what the heck she had spent $450 on and she gawked at me, not realizing that I'm notified every time she withdraws money. Then she came clean that she had bought a new facial cream. She said something like, "I know you're mad, but trust me, I'm going to make way more money when I start my Patreon." I was furious. I called her a delusional fast food addict and told her to return the lotion because we were not in a position to be spending $450 on cosmetics. She responded that the store did not accept returns, doubtful. And then when I told her that she was going to be selling it to someone else, she grabbed the tiny container and opened it in front of me. Now she's in another room crying about the ensuing argument, repeating that I'm ruining her months of work on this project. I know she'll come out eventually, if for nothing else but to order takeout again or something like that. But I'm starting to feel a bit bad about calling her delusional. Should I have handled this differently? I had to scroll back to the top and check her age. When I was your wife's age, I got a job tending in a bar to contribute when my career plans got derailed. She is indeed delusional. $450 on face cream? I can't even. Not the jerk, OP. Your wife has some growing up to do, and fast. Months of work? Reminds me of the I Love Lucy episode where Lucy tells Ricky, "Yes, I lose money on every sale, but I'll make up for it on volume." Your wife lives in a fantasy world. She's wiping you out financially. She has no incentive to stop wasting everything unless you figuratively talk some sense into her. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. Look, I've been going to conventions since 1999, gaming, anime, music, fantasy, sci-fi, etc., and I have had some ex-friends become recognizable names in the cosplay world. It has nothing to do with makeup and skin routine, and it's not a cheap hobby at all. Nothing she should be doing if you and her are struggling financially. Skinny to plus size, it really doesn't matter, though yes, the vast majority are skinny. As much as some of these famous cosplayers hate to admit it today, sometimes you have to start at the absolute bottom and work your way up. Go from cheap, and as you get money, add to it. A lot of cosplayers are thrifty, and they recycle things to create pieces of art. Unless she's going to make up looks, then she should be focused more on other arts and craft skills, like sewing and metalworking. Worst yet, you are not guaranteed to make it big on Patreon or anywhere else, especially being a no-name with no presence in any cosplay community. I don't mean to dash dreams, but I'm going to call her out for wasting so much money, and for what? She should have started her journey with what she had and within her means. Now maybe she's just feeling insecure about herself and trying to make herself feel good. I don't know, but I think you need to have a hard think if this is how you want your marriage to go. She's been unemployed and seems to want to keep it that way. She's stealing money from you by not bringing up her purchases with you. And to be honest, you might not be as attracted to her as much anymore since you keep bringing up her fast food. After you think hard on that, have a heart-to-heart with her about how you are feeling about this, finances, her continued unemployment, and diet. Tell her she has to do this as a hobby after she finds a job because you're not supporting her and she owes you money. P.S. TikTok is toxic and you should not be using social media to look good. Young man, if you don't take that, I shall become difficult. I went to the grocery store today for some essentials, and tragically, they were all healthy picks. Eggs, yogurt, spinach, blah. I managed to make it in and out of the store without any unfortunate run-ins with other people, and while I was walking to my car, I heard an older lady trying to get the attention of a cart wrangler in the parking lot. She was a little closer to the store than where I was parked in the same row. She was being ignored by a cart jockey with a full carriage of groceries and an open trunk on her car. It didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what she wanted, so I walked over, made sure the goal was to get the stuff out of the carriage and into the SUV, and I did it. It took me about 2 minutes. The whole time, the lady was thanking me profusely, calling me a nice young man. I'm old enough now that it was flattering rather than condescending. Mid to late 30s, don't rub it in. When all was said and done, and I'd made sure the trunk could close without smushing anything, I grabbed my own groceries. The lady grabbed my arm to stop me. She was an older lady, but not particularly frail. Think matron rather than frail grandma. While I wasn't okay with being grabbed, she wagged something papery and green in front of me and said, "I was going to give it to that boy over there after he helped me, but he apparently couldn't hear me," with an eye roll. Rather than try to argue, because again, she didn't look like someone you should try to mess around with, I took the green paper she was waving. It was a $100 bill. I was immediately like, "Nuh-uh, this is yours, take it back, too much," that sort of thing. Then she gave me a look and said, "Young man, if you don't take that, I shall become difficult." The urge to cover my ears was strong. It wasn't because she was shouting shrilly, it was because the last time I heard a woman speak to me in that tone, my earlobe got pinched and I was dragged to the appropriate authority. Rather than argue, I took the money. Right after she released me, I felt something heavy slam into my side, knocking me off balance, but not quite tipping me over. Once I recovered, I looked at what hit me, a full cart of groceries. I saw a woman in her 40s wearing big sunglasses staring at me from the back of her own SUV. "Put this stuff in there, I'm in a hurry," she said. She then proceeded to start talking on a cell phone, avoiding eye contact with every expectation of me doing her bidding. Mind you, I was in black mesh shorts and a navy blue t-shirt. Folks who work for that grocery store wear white button-downs and khaki pants or shorts. It wouldn't have been okay even if I did work there. Pretty sure shoving a loaded cart someone's way is assault or something like that. But the sheer audacity of this woman left me stunned for a moment. My mouth opened and closed a few times as I tried to think of how to handle this particular situation. I've obviously spent a lot of time in the gym, and the Karen didn't. If it escalated, which it probably would have, it would have been a really bad look for me. But as it so happens, I didn't need to do a thing. The older lady I'd helped previously walked over to the woman who was still trying to avoid looking at me or her groceries and found herself with a face full of matron. "Oh, I didn't realize you'd had both your hips replaced too," she said brightly. The Karen let her phone drop and just said, "What?" Nice lady. "Well, that nice young man saw me being ignored by an employee and just asked to help me. Such a nice thing we see in this day and age. And mind you, I've had both my hips replaced. My doctor would be most upset if he found out I was exerting myself that way. When did yours get replaced? They did mine one at a time a few months back," she said brightly. The Karen replied, I haven't had my hips replaced. I'm just in a hurry, so if you wouldn't mind," and she actually tried to turn away. The matron, now with a sickly sweet smile on her face, said, "Oh, so there's nothing wrong with you? You just couldn't be bothered to put your own groceries in your car? You're simply too good for that kind of thing." The Karen stammered, And rather than ask that nice young man, you just gave your car a push and hit him with it? Just because you were in a hurry?" The Karen started to puff up. "Now you listen," and instantly got deflated by an old-fashioned look. Kids prone to misbehavior are quite familiar with it. It's a look that quite clearly communicates, "We're in public, you're in trouble. Cease, or the consequences will be Old Testament." Seeing it work on a grown adult was a thing to behold. "Young man, please bring that carriage over. I think this nice young lady is ready to put her own groceries in her car." I pushed the carriage over and left it near the two women. "Now you run along and don't spend all that in one place," the older woman said with a smile. I gave her the Boy Scout salute, grabbed my bag, and headed off for my own vehicle. The Karen was still putting her bags into her car, being supervised by the old lady. I might have cackled. Am I the jerk for telling my wife that late pickup fees are on her and her alone? I'm 34 years old. My wife is 33. We've been together for 10 years, and we have a 4-year-old son together. Ever since we started dating, my wife has chronically been late. I can count on one hand how many times I remember her being on time. She has this bizarre tendency to leave when we're supposed to be arriving at whatever venue we're going to. If we have reservations for 7, she's not ready until 7. If the movie starts at 5:45, she's not ready until 5:45. I used to find it kind of humorous and almost endearing. There was an ongoing joke of her being from the distant future where we had figured out wormhole technology for instant teleportation and that she just hadn't adapted to the present year yet. But now that we have a kid together and important appointments for which we can't be late, it's not funny anymore. It regularly causes me a significant amount of stress. Our son started going to daycare last year. Since my wife is a stay-at-home mom, taking him to and from daycare is her responsibility. Naturally, she's late dropping him off every day. Then she's late picking him up. In the middle of August, our son's daycare sent out a group email informing us that there would be a new fee for any late pickups. Every minute that a parent was late, the daycare would tack on a $2 fee. 10 minutes late would incur a $20 fee. To be perfectly honest, there's no doubt in my mind that they started this because of my wife, who was late to pick him up literally every day his first year. I've tried to get her to be better, but when confronted, she always has an excuse ready to go, which makes it impossible to have any discussion about the subject. Well, our bill for the first 2 weeks of September just arrived. Lo and behold, on top of the normal fee, I found a $262 late pickup fee on the bill, which means that my wife was late to pick him up, on average, 12 minutes per day. I told my wife that, as usual, I would be paying for the normal fees, but she would have to pay the $262 late pickup fee out of her $800 allowance. She initially refused, saying she couldn't afford it, despite having no real expenses other than her phone and Netflix. Then she called the daycare to try and debate the issue. I watched as she tried to play Aaron Brockovich. She eventually tired herself out, frantically Googling laws while on the phone, and hung up on the poor staff. At that time, I told her that it was entirely her fault, and that if she can't even do the bare minimum of being an adult, she needs to grow up. She immediately began barraging me with excuses. She then laid down her final debate-ending question. "Why don't you just pick him up then?" "Because I'm at work. I work for a living." Anyway, the daycare won't take him back until the bill is paid in full. I feel terrible for my son because he's completely innocent in all of this and loves going to daycare. But I feel like it's the only way to get my wife to realize there are consequences for her tardiness. Am I pushing it too far too fast, or should I stick to my guns here? My son's daycare charges $10 per minute if you're late. They told us that they are legally and morally obligated to make sure your kid is safe and picked up. However, when you're late, it prevents the staff member who has to stay late from going home to their families. All late fees go directly to the staff member who has to stay with your kid. Good. The point of the fee isn't to make more money, it's to get out of there on time. They already have an arrangement in place to make money for their required hours. If $2 an hour doesn't send the message, then go $10. If that doesn't work and parents just pay it, then go $20. The world isn't waiting on you or your significant other to keep spinning. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. Who you marry is one of the most important decisions you'll ever make in your life. Be careful, my friends. Be careful. Mistakenly called the cops on my boyfriend when he had planned a surprise proposal. We've been together for 7 years. We moved in together after 2 weeks, adopted a dog and a couple of cats, opened a joint bank account, met each other's families, and merged our friends into one tribe. It's been 7 really good years, and I'm happy. I'm not one of those people who needs to be married. I don't need a ring, a ceremony, or a piece of paper to commit my life to the one person I love beyond all others. I am his wholly and completely. That isn't to say I'm against marriage, because I'm not, but getting a ring on my finger is not a priority for me. When I have thought about it, I imagine a small wedding with our parents, maybe our siblings and the officiant. Barefoot on the beach. No fuss, nothing elaborate, something simple that we could throw together ourselves. Then off to a place where we could relax, eat, and drink without the formalities. If I had a dream wedding, it would be that or something similar. Back in July, my boyfriend was acting cagey. I knew he was up to something and trying to hide it. He's no good at keeping things under wraps. He's one of those people who, even though they don't say anything, act like they have a secret. I wasn't worried about his secret because I knew he would tell me eventually. I thought he was going to surprise me with a weekend getaway since I had been working long hours for a couple of months, and that's the kind of thing that he does. One night I arrived home from work and his car wasn't in the driveway. The house was dark and the front door was wide open. I sat in the street watching the house for a couple of minutes. There was no movement, no lights in the windows, nothing. I called my boyfriend 4 times, no answer. That wasn't like him. 1 missed call? Sure. 4 missed calls? No. So I called the cops. I was still on the phone with emergency services when they arrived. They came over to me. I gave them a rundown of what I knew, which was nothing, and they went into the house. A few minutes later, one of them came out and asked me to go inside with them. They led me through the house to the back patio. I had flipped the lights on as I entered and saw that a trail of rose petals led us right out back, where my boyfriend, wearing a tux and handcuffs, was sitting at our patio table that was beautifully set for dinner. It goes without saying that the surprise proposal was ruined. It's been about 7 weeks since then. Things are not good between us. It was a simple misunderstanding on my part. My boyfriend thinks I called the cops because I knew he was going to propose. He thinks I don't want to marry him, and instead of saying that, I found a way to make sure I wouldn't have to. We've discussed getting married exactly once, and that was in our first year of being together. I remember the conversation word for word because it was only a handful of words. He asked me if I would wear his ring. I said yeah. He asked me when, and I told him to surprise me. That was the extent of our discussion about marriage. I don't know how I was supposed to know he was going to ask 5 weeks ago based on a half-baked conversation from 6 years ago. I know I hurt him, and I've apologized for doing so. He refuses to see how it came about that I called the cops. He went to his parents that night because he was so upset, then came home an hour later because they thought it was hilarious. Everyone he tells thinks that it's funny. He's the one telling people. Before this post, I hadn't said anything to anyone because I know it upsets him. I don't know what else to do. He doesn't believe that it was a huge misunderstanding. Am I missing something? Did I break his trust or do him harm in some way that I'm just not seeing? How do I approach this so I can fix it? At this point, I'm thinking of proposing to him so that we can move on from this. Have you tried reversing the example? What if you came home, it was dark out, the front door is wide open with nobody at home, and you couldn't get a hold of me? Wouldn't you be worried that there was a home invasion? That's what I thought happened. The fact that he's so upset about this and blaming you is very weird. Your boyfriend meant well, but empty driveway, dark house, front door hanging wide open means exactly what you thought when you saw it. To anyone with a shred of common sense and a drive towards self-preservation. He got it almost right and then ruined it with the dumb front door. You would have been a fool to walk into that, and you did exactly right by involving the police. And now he's being unfair to you by refusing to acknowledge he did something spectacularly idiotic. At this point, it's gone beyond dumb and has progressed to emotional mistreatment. You did nothing wrong. He hangs out on the idea that everyone he tells thinks it's funny, without realizing that the reason it's funny is because he did something embarrassingly stupid, and he's the one who ended up in handcuffs at his own proposal because of it. My advice is to get a disinterested third party to yell some sense into him, because he's damaging his relationship and he's pouting over something that is entirely his fault. Just found out my husband fabricated his entire life. Can I get an annulment, and how do I get him out? I met my husband 4 years ago, just before moving from Pennsylvania to Georgia. Shortly after my move, he followed me and we fell in love. We lived together from 2015 onward, and in mid-November of 2018, we got married. Today, I discovered that virtually everything he's ever told me or demonstrated about his life was a complete fabrication. From specific medical issues to jobs, past and present, education, family relationships, the claim that his first language was not English, to phone conversations that never happened and people he supposedly knows. If you can think of it, he's lied about it. We live together, but my name is on the lease, and I hold the title on both of our cars. He has some belongings in our home, but most were purchased with money I earned over our 4 years together, plus money from my personal savings. I'm totally open to letting him walk away with all of his stuff and even signing the older car over to him. After a quick internet search, it looks like I might have grounds for annulment on the basis of being seriously misled. Do I? What will I need to prove in order to make it work? And is there anything else I should keep in mind to aim for an annulment instead of divorce? He is mentally ill, though quite differently than I was led to believe, and receives SSDI each month. but that is nowhere near enough for him to live on. What is the legal way to get him out of my house and life with minimal risk, damage, and cost to me? Also, do I look for a divorce lawyer in this situation? Also, how does custody of pets work? We have 2 kittens we got in July, and I can't imagine separating them. I also can't imagine him being able to take care of them once we're separated, but I don't know if that matters. Update. It's been a little over a year since I turned to this community as my life fell dramatically to pieces around me. About 2.5 months later, I successfully had my marriage annulled on the basis of fraudulent coercion to marry. I ended up doing the necessary research and filing the paperwork myself, which wasn't easy, but was both cheaper and faster than hiring a lawyer. A few weeks after the annulment, I moved my belongings out of our apartment and relocated to a new city and a new job without him, but with the kittens. By late June, I finally convinced him that contacting me was pointless because he wasn't getting me back, and since then, I've been largely free to recover from the crisis mode that I lived in for about 3 months. My girlfriend refused to dress formally for my work's extremely formal event. My boss threw a charity party to raise money to fund research projects for a rare disease. I won't be giving any details just in case someone I know sees this. Many of the guests were very important and influential people in my city and in my field of work, and obviously my coworkers were also there. It was a very formal event. Dress code was white tie and everything. I, 27 male, invited my girlfriend, who's 25, as my +1. We've been dating for 1 year, and I've never had any issues with the way she dresses. I would never tell her how to dress, but then this unfortunately happened. We don't live together, so I got ready and drove to her house. I saw she was wearing a very tight, short skirt with one of those shirts that are kinda open in the middle. Of course, she looked great. If we were going anywhere else, like a club or a restaurant, I wouldn't even think twice about it. But we were going to a very formal charity event. When she got in the car, I asked if she forgot it was a white tie event, and she was like, "No, why? Is there something wrong with my outfit?" So I said that it was not appropriate for the occasion and asked if she could go change. She was very offended. I told her I totally understand why she would be offended, but explained that this was a very formal charity event and I couldn't show up with her wearing that outfit, especially with my boss and coworkers there. She got so angry and refused to change her outfit, saying I was being a jerk. I tried to explain it one more time, but she kept saying I had to accept it or she wouldn't go with me. So after a lot of arguing, I said she would have to stay home then. I went to the party without her, and we haven't been talking because she wants me to apologize and make it up to her. I really like this girl, but I also don't think I'm in the wrong here. She went partying with her friends that night, and she obviously told all of her friends about what happened. They all think I'm the jerk, and they keep commenting petty things on my social media posts, and recently, even her brother has been threatening me. Maybe I was a jerk and I don't realize it. Am I the jerk? Edit. Since a few people have asked, yes, I did tell her it was a white tie event as soon as I got the invitation and asked if she'd want to go with me. But no, I didn't explain to her in detail what exactly white tie means. I assumed she knew, so maybe that was my mistake. I did explain to her in the car when I asked if she could change, but she was already too offended and wouldn't listen. Not the jerk. Events have dress codes. That is a hard truth. She could have cost you your job. Not the jerk. The event host set the dress code, not you. Your girlfriend made a deliberate choice to dress in opposition to the dress code, so she didn't get to go. You don't owe her anything, not an apology, and certainly not some making up for her mistake. Okay, I've been in her position before, and let me tell you, you are the jerk. Just because others are conforming doesn't mean you can force her to. You have no right to tell her what to wear, regardless of how important you think your little get-together is. I hope she dumps you for someone who actually respects her. I would never date a guy who tries to tell me what I can and can't wear. I can't believe how many people are making excuses for your blatant being a jerk. Crap like this is why I only date guys who make minimum wage or unemployed like myself. Guys who make ridiculous amounts of money always think it entitles them to boss you around. Newsflash, being a rich boy doesn't entitle you to crap, and you're no better than me. I have 2 toddlers I'm raising as a single mom, and I hope to God they don't grow up to be jerks like you. Alrighty then. Hey Karen, you ever feel like Reddit is a zoo? Zoo would be an understatement, Reddit boy. Insane asylum would be more accurate. Am I the jerk for telling my sister that she doesn't have to come to my wedding? My sister has 2 kids, an 8-year-old and a newborn. Our wedding, 1.5 years away, is supposed to be child-free, with the exception of siblings, because my fiance and I both have large age gaps between us and our siblings. He has a 3, a 4, and a 12-year-old brother, and I have a teenage brother. I also have my sister and older brother. Obviously, we want our siblings at our wedding, even if they're kids, and it breaks our child-free rule. For our wedding, we're renting out a huge Airbnb for a week, a literal mansion, where the wedding and reception will be, and invited all immediate family to stay with us for the week as our first family vacation as an official family. I love my nephews, I really do, but my fiance and I wanted to plan a bunch of adult/couples events like wine tasting, e-bike tours, snorkeling, etc., and I don't want kids with me when we do it. The host was nice enough to match us with some babysitters that he frequently works with for events just like this, so the other kids, our younger siblings, will stay at the Airbnb with the babysitter, but our parents know they have to pay for the babysitter. My fiance and I are paying for all of the adult events we have planned, like the wine tasting and tours, etc., and they're okay with it. We want them to pay for childcare simply because I don't want to be responsible for anyone's kids for the entirety of the wedding and vacation afterwards, financially or emotionally. There will be plenty of things for the kids to do at the Airbnb as well. My sister said it's not fair that our siblings are invited but not my nephews, and I told her if I broke the child-free rule for everyone I loved, there would be no child-free rule. She told me that if I'm not allowing kids, I have to pay for childcare and find someone to stay with them for a week. I told her no. She said, "I'm not paying for a babysitter," and I told her, "Then don't come." I was upset she was trying to manipulate me into paying for childcare when I'm literally offering her an all-expense vacation. The only thing she has to pay for is childcare for her own kids. I told her if she was going to make my wedding about her, I don't want her there. She then flipped out and called me every name she could think of, so I yanked her invite altogether and told her I'd send her pics of the wedding and vacation afterwards so she can see where her selfishness got her. My family is super close to each other, and I love my nephews, so everyone was very surprised I made the wedding child-free. But after I yanked my sister's invite, people started to also decline the invite. My response has pretty much been, "You aren't punishing me the way you think you are. All you're doing is saving me money. But if you don't come support me on my love day, then expect me to go no contact." Now everyone is upset at me. I think this may have come off as a bit bridezilla, but I don't think I owe any of them anything, honestly. It's my wedding. Am I being selfish here? Edit. I don't think I made it clear that my family is holding their attendance over my head and are saying, "If you don't invite your sister and nephews, I won't come either." So I told them, don't come. But I didn't appreciate the way they were trying to manipulate my decision, so I told them if they don't come, I'm going no contact. Edit 2. I told her she could come for the wedding and not stay for the vacation, but she wanted both. I only uninvited her after she said a bunch of nasty stuff to me. The exception to the child-free rule is for immediate family only. There will be things for the kids to do at the Airbnb. And a lot of people are saying, wait till you have kids. But I would just not come to the wedding. I would choose my kids over the wedding. To me, it's my love day, but I understand to everyone else it's just a stupid wedding, and I'm okay with that. No one has to come that doesn't want to, and I'm okay with that. It's completely understandable. But people that are not coming out of spite of the situation, I take a problem with. Update. After reading all of the comments telling me no one cares about our wedding, the vacation doesn't sound like it would be fun at all, I'm being controlling, I'm being selfish and an entitled bridezilla, I clearly don't value my family, etc. My fiance and I have decided to cancel our wedding altogether. We'll have a small ceremony for us and our parents, and then my husband and I will use the big beautiful mansion we rented out as our honeymoon. We'll message the Airbnb host tomorrow about moving the date up. We're very excited. I realize neither of us wanted to cater to anyone, because the only people that matter when it comes to our marriage is us. Forget everyone else. To everyone saying that child-free weddings are egotistical, no one cares about your kids. I love kids, I really do, but no one should have to cater to your kids' needs except for you. Thank you all for making me realize how stupid family weddings are. We don't need them present to have our happily ever after. We'd prefer to avoid the drama altogether. That's all. Update. OMG, where do I start? I moved in with her after her kid was born and her baby daddy left. I was only 15 and lived with her for 3 years and helped raise her kid, but she swears it never happened. When she moved out of my parents, she took the family dog with her. The last time she moved, she asked for heck because she's pregnant, but then sat the entire time and did nothing. I had to clean hers and her son's room, which both had trash up to my knees, and then pack everything because her stomach hurt. Not to sound insensitive, but the only time she seems to feel sick was when she had to do something. She was about 3 months along. My fiance, boyfriend at the time, and I offered to help her move, like actually pack up the truck and move furniture and such. And again, she sat doing nothing the entire time. It was -5 degrees outside, and she sat in the car. Once we were done, I got into the car and she said, "Oh, good, you're done." And I was like, "Yeah, we're done. You could have helped." And she said, "It's cold." I was so mad. But she was pregnant, so I pushed through. I kept helping. After my boyfriend and I were talking about where we wanted to eat, and she started screaming at us to shut up because she's hungry and doesn't want to listen to people talk about food. I was mortified. He spent all day lugging furniture in negative weather, and she was so rude, never even thanked him. Then I was over the moon to throw her a baby shower. I love kids, but she never sent me an invite list. I waited months and eventually made it myself because we were running out of time, and she pitched a fit about who I did or didn't invite. And then she uninvited me to a baby shower that I spent hundreds of dollars and hours of time planning. The only job she had as the pregnant mother was to make an invite list and to show up on time. But she also complained about the time I planned it. I couldn't believe it. Final update. I sent out an email canceling the wedding to avoid any conflicts with childcare arrangements, and we decided it wasn't fair to people with kids. Obviously, this isn't true, but that's where this all began, so I didn't tell anyone about the conflict between my sister and I, but she had already dragged half of my family into it, so they knew the situation. This is each person's reaction. My parents, they were disappointed, but understood. My sister has always been a nightmare, and we have always given her anything she wants, if for nothing else, just to shut her up. They literally let her take the family dog just to keep her from throwing a tantrum. They're glad that I shut her up as well as not just giving in to what she wants. His parents, they were so sad. They were really excited to have this vacation, but they're still happy for us and understand. Younger siblings are crushed. I'm going to go on a weekend trip with them to make it up for it. That seemed to cheer them up a bit. Sister. My sister made a Facebook post telling everyone what an arrogant jerk I am. She texted me saying she never wants to see me again, but she also said that when I accidentally broke her favorite perfume, and again when I told her son he couldn't have my cat. Yes, my cat of 2 years. And she told her son in front of me, "Maybe Auntie will let you take the cat when we leave." And she put me in an awkward and upsetting position of telling my nephew and sister absolutely not. And again, when I wouldn't make her dozens of meals for free to freeze after she gave birth. And again, when I didn't buy her a gift for her baby shower that she uninvited me to, that I planned. She'll get over it once she needs a babysitter again, like every time. Everyone else, honestly, that's just too much to go into. Some people are upset they don't get to attend the wedding and are calling me petty and small. I am, I don't care. But some are just annoyed because this is what my sister does. This is who she is. I decided I don't care if I'm the jerk or not. It's my wedding. My fiance is happy with this decision, and we will do what we want. But honestly, the people calling me the jerk were usually jerks themselves, telling me I'll get divorced. My family probably hates me, and they should go no contact with me either way. That I'm insufferable, that I can't stand kids, that I'm a bad aunt, that I should never have kids, that I'm entitled, etc. And I don't think I should cater to people like that. Thanks for helping me realize how ungrateful people are. Not the jerk. People have child-free weddings all the time. My wedding was child-free. Siblings are way different than nieces and nephews. Sorry, but it's true. No one is entitled to come to your expenses-paid vacation wedding, especially not if they want you to pay for their childcare on top of a free trip. OP. That's what I think. People are saying it's wrong to invite siblings but not nephews, but nephews aren't immediate family, and those are the only people we bent the rules for. Yeah, you could have handled it with more grace, but they shouldn't be surprised you're acting negatively when they effectively are trying to punish you for something they don't agree with. I honestly am gonna go with not the jerk. Your parents agreed to pay for childcare because they understand that their kids are not your responsibility, no matter how much you love them, which is enough to allow kids to a kid-free wedding. Your sister has a year and a half to come up with childcare to attend a wedding that you're paying for. It's extremely selfish of her to expect you to pay for everything for your wedding and the entire vacation for all attendees. And then to also take care of her kids for her? It's also really low of her to insult you for not doing so. All the family members backing out and picking sides are kind of acting a little toxic, dangling their attendance over your head just so you'll cave to your sister's demands. It makes me feel like they favor her over you, and this is supposed to be your special event. She'd still have to pay for childcare for her kids to be watched at the Airbnb since you're not even allowing the child siblings to some events. Why is she expecting it would be different with her kids? Not the jerk. It's your wedding, and if you want to, you can make it child-free. You're offering your guest a place to stay for free while paying for everyone's activities. That's extremely generous. I understand if your sister doesn't want to come because she can't bring her kids, but it's also unreasonable for her to request that you pay for her kids' childcare. Also, she can't compare your nephew to your siblings. Those are different relationships. So I understand why you would want your younger siblings to attend and not your nephews. Good for you for staying firm in your decision. I don't know if I would go no contact with everyone who declines. They may be declining because they can't afford to pay for a sitter or feel uncomfortable leaving their kids for a week. I wouldn't assume that people are only declining to show solidarity with your sister. If you do find out that this is the case, then by all means, go no contact if that's how you truly feel. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know.
Fighting over an all-expenses-paid wedding vacation that lasts a week. Gotta love the first world problems.
My husband lied to me about our multi-generational house. Now I have no idea what to do. I've been married to my husband for 4 years now. We have 3 kids. When we got married, I moved in with him. The story I was told about the house we live in is that he bought the house with his grandparents and that once they passed, it would be just our house. When I moved in, his parents, his 19-year-old cousin Bea, his grandmother, and occasionally his aunt still lived there. I was told that the aunt just visited but lived in another state, and that Bea was only living there until she finished college as a favor to her and her family. 4 years later, they are all still living here full-time as the aunt gave up her other house during 2020. Bea is now married and has a kid. While there are technically enough bedrooms for everyone with enough sharing, this house is way too overcrowded. It wasn't until late last year that I had had my 3rd child and expressed interest in having Bea's family and her mother at least work on moving out that I learned that that story was false. My husband and his parents don't co-own the house. The money that paid for the house is 40% my husband, 20% his parents, and 40% money from their grandparents that was gifted early. Part of the grandparents' stipulation for going in on this house was that Bea was to be put on the paperwork as well. Legally, Bea owns 33% of the house and is the 3rd name on the title. I was shocked by this. Bea will never want to move out and won't let us kick out her mother, and his parents have the right to live here for life, so this is just settled as a multi-generational house and will always be. Of course, my husband says he never told me any other story. I can't prove it, but it doesn't matter now. I hate living like this. I never wanted a multi-generational house. Everyone else is totally fine and happy with this, and from the outside it looks like a great situation. But this is never what I wanted. It feels like a commune. There's very little privacy and someone is around every corner. I've started opening up to my friends who express jealousy because I have live-in socialization, safe grandparent help, and a full tribe. I was tired of it, so I told them the truth. It got around, and now I'm public enemy #1 in my house, and even accused of wanting a divorce if I hate my family so much. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk, but your husband is for lying to you. I'd actually consider a divorce for that alone. And you're not a jerk for venting to friends about the crappy, to you, even if others love it, situation you ended up in due to your husband's lies. I'd divorce over this too. It sounds like cultural differences here, as many cultures do live in generational houses. My mom's side does that, and I still live with my parents. It's not for everybody, and that's perfectly understandable. Unfortunately, your husband lied to you and is trying to gaslight you into believing what he wants you to. That's a red flag and something you need to discuss calmly with your husband. Be warned that it may not come to much, as he and his family think that leaving family is akin to leaving the family forever. By that, I mean leaving the household, in case that wasn't clear. Not the jerk. But what do you want to do now? Edit to include this from reading other comments from OP. OP, this is very concerning, and to be completely honest, kind of horrifying. Especially about the home birth being pushed on you, though you did not take that route. Please, please seek therapy for yourself. OP, I love my husband and I don't want to leave him or our family. Even if he wanted to leave, we realistically can't anyway. Our monthly expenses with the house easily equal a mortgage, not to mention family expenses for us and the kids. I can't work until the kids are all in school and might even have to homeschool now, so we're on one income. At best, we would be in a one-bedroom apartment with no outdoor space, which is in no way better for them than a perfectly safe house with their whole extended family where it's at most 2 people to a bedroom on multiple acres of land, trying to keep details vague. I live in a place where all of the houses are on maybe a quarter of an acre of land, so take this with a grain of salt, but multiple acres sounds huge to me. Is it possible to build a cottage or two for Bea and her mom? Or maybe for just mom and dad? Can you add a private wing or in-law suite to the house with its own kitchenette and sitting area? Anything to partition the space a bit. OP. Some of it is taken up by Bea's garden and chickens, which does cut down on grocery costs for us all. There's a full playground and trampoline, a pool, space for the dogs, and outdoor hangout area. And then there's the woods. It's a lot of space, but not as much as you would think. There isn't space for an entire other house. Maybe there's enough space for a small shed or a tiny house for you, an art studio, office space, private reading nook. Somewhere to get away would probably help a ton just in the immediate sense. Other than that, you're definitely going to want to talk to your husband about how he lied and misrepresented the situation entirely, but at least a little breathing room could help you feel more comfortable. OP. A shed, definitely. I'll bring this up. I'm definitely angry with my husband about this and will be for a while. It just doesn't mean I want a divorce. I second the idea of a little shed for you. We bought a 10 by 12 wooden shed, insulated it, and ran electric to it. It became my oldest's bedroom, so they wouldn't have to share a room with siblings. It was a lifesaver. Now, it's my little office for me, much cheaper than an addition. I'm sorry, but Bea is honestly not at all to blame, and to be honest, seems to be helping you out here. Do you have any personal issues with Bea? I would seriously contemplate divorce, as the only jerk here is your husband. The rest of the family need to know what you were told about, though he will deny it to save face, of course. I'm shocked that you have 3 kids together in this home. It is irresponsible, and honestly, it seems like everyone sucks here except Bea. OP. She's 33% owner and 90% of the emotional problem. She would go absolutely ballistic if she thought that her family's life in the house was threatened. This is her first stable home, and she is scarily committed to this as a lifetime thing, considering she's not even 22. Someone mentioned renting out rooms, and the reason that would be completely unworkable is Bea. If she wasn't a player in this, we could probably get the idea out there, and of course there would be standards. But with her, it would be the definition of hostile living situation for whoever moved in. There's tons of wiggle room with what we would actually be able to rent out, so she would make sure that only the worst rooms were free. She would insist on a full background check on anyone moving in, and she would use anything she could to get them out if they got through. There's maybe one friend of hers she would let in, but that friend couldn't pay rent. Do I personally have an issue with her? Not really. I thought I did, but that was when I thought she was being an entitled teenager, making way too many changes to a house that she was eventually leaving. Bea is 0% of your problem. Your problem is your husband who has lied to you for the entirety of your relationship. He has likely lied about other things and will likely continue to do it because it gets him what he wants. Bea living in her house she legally owns is not a problem. Your problem is your lying husband. Honestly, it does not sound like Bea is ever going to leave that house, which is her right. She owns it and it's her house. So you need to decide if you are fine staying living with her or figure out a way to move out. I don't know why you would ever stay with someone who has lied and manipulated you like this for your entire relationship. So good luck with that. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or is her husband? Please let us know.
5 acres of land is a nice amount of space. I hope they clear out a section of the woods and build a tiny house in it. And why not design it after a hobbit hole? I love Lord of the Rings.
Am I the jerk for hiding behind the couch so my sister wouldn't hand her screaming baby to me? I'm 14, female, and my sister Della, who's 19, is in college. She took her second semester off because she recently had a baby, Roxy, who's 0, female. She knows who the father is, but they aren't in a relationship. Della came back home for the semester break to make it easier for her. Roxy has these meltdowns, don't have a better word, where she's cranky, tired, and is just screaming her head off. When I sing a certain song to her by a pop band I love, she calms down. I have to sing to her for an hour or more. I'm not a good singer, but Roxy likes it anyway. It also works when she's just normal fussy crying. Della always hands Roxy to me when she cries, especially during her meltdowns. Della and I had an argument a week ago about the stupidest thing. Della wanted me to stop singing a song under my breath while I was making myself a snack, and I said I can't control it. It was about the noise. It was about her thinking that I'm a terrible singer and not wanting to be subjected to that god-awful noise. She told me that I was a selfish, lazy jerk who doesn't care about anyone but myself, and I said, fine. Since my singing is so bad, I won't calm Roxy down with it. She said fine. On Thursday, when I got home from school, my parents were working and Roxy was having one of her meltdowns. Della tried to hand me Roxy. I said no, my singing is crap, and I didn't want to subject anyone to it, and walked away. Then I hid behind the couch so she wouldn't be able to force me into helping with Roxy. Della thought I'd gone to a friend's and didn't look for me for a while, until she decided to call me to see when I'd be home. She heard the phone ring and was furious that I didn't come out and help her. My parents are telling me that it was super immature to hide. Della is a stressed, sleep-deprived teenager, and she needed me then, and I wasn't there for her. And now I don't know. They want me to apologize, but I don't want to. But maybe I was just being petty and Della was just tired. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Della's baby is not your baby. You're 14 years old. If she's so stressed, she should be looking into some sort of child support or help from the father. But forcing her baby on her 14-year-old sister is not okay. Seriously, and the parents defending Della are gross too. This is not OP's baby. The parents are only defending this because they don't want to handle the baby either. Dumping this on a kid is inexcusable. Watch, OP soon won't be able to hang out with friends. We'll have to cancel plans and we'll lose out on weekend fun, all because the parents and her stupid sister don't want to watch the baby. I mean, that was a super immature way to deal with it. But 1, you're a kid, so you're allowed to be immature. 2, that's not your baby and you aren't responsible for always being the one to calm her down. Not the jerk. Am I the jerk for lying to my wife about what time the guests arrive because she takes too long to get the food ready? My wife has a huge struggle with time management. Whenever we have guests over, they always end up waiting far too long for the food to be ready. Her argument is that she is struggling because there's just so much to do all at the same time. I'm the complete opposite. I get all chores done on time and have never had an issue with having so much to do at the same time. Last week we were having some guests over. She wanted to prepare a few dishes and asked when exactly the guests would be arriving. I lied to her. Instead of saying 5, I said 4. She got into the kitchen earlier and started preparing the food. 4 rolled around and she asked why the guests hadn't arrived yet. I kept stalling, saying maybe there was traffic or something. My wife began questioning the fact that they were even coming, but at 5 they arrived. We welcomed them. Food got served on time, had more time to talk and hang out in the living room. My wife then asked one of the guests what made them arrive an hour late. He said that they were meant to arrive at the time they agreed upon, which was 5, and told her that I knew that. I felt absolutely awful, but I kept my cool and tried to change the subject. Through the looks my wife gave me, she wasn't going to let it go. After they left, she confronted me, and I admitted lying to her about the time of the arrival so she could be ready on time to serve the food, and also since it was not cool to keep them waiting like she did in the past. She said I was unbelievable and that I never should have lied, but I said I felt frustrated with this whole thing that wouldn't get fixed. She said if I don't like it, then I should do it, but I said I already do my part and never complain. She said that I insulted her and lied to her and made her feel like she's a terrible host, then stormed off. I tried talking to her about it again, but she told me off, calling what I did sneaky and offending to her efforts when I was just trying to figure out a fix for the issue. Am I the jerk, or is she overreacting? You're the jerk. Perhaps the two of you need to switch roles when entertaining. You do the cooking and time-sensitive stuff. She can greet the guests and entertain while you take care of the finishing touches. It really doesn't sound as if her timing is that bad. You told her 4, she had the food ready by 5. If you told her 5, the food would have been ready around 6. A reasonable mealtime. Just have a tray of snacks and some drinks for while people settle down. It is a nicer party if you aren't rushed to the table the moment you come through the door. Or maybe he needs to complete the chores before and help the wife in the kitchen. It can be hard to socialize and cook at the same time. Anyways, OP is the jerk. We're pretty close friends to a family, and whenever we go there for dinner, my uncle, well, not really my uncle, but I call him that, makes dinner. I've never seen his wife make food for parties, and that's just because my uncle enjoys cooking much more. And even then, we don't have dinner immediately after arriving. There's usually wine or something like tea and a bunch of snacks. Then us cousins go play some card games and stuff until the dinner is ready. Oh, and usually when we're all hanging out together, some of the guests are helping in the kitchen too. And it's pretty natural because the kitchen is connected to the living room and everyone's talking and hanging out, even if they're cooking in the kitchen and stuff like that. Last time we went there, which was a few weeks ago, my brother and my cousin did the dishes together after dinner. It's really not hard to help at a party. People should learn that a party isn't supposed to be all stress for the host, or even worse, the wife. Everyone, including the guests, can help so all people have fun and enjoy their time. I'm gonna go opposite and say, not the jerk. I'm like the wife in this story. No matter what time people say to meet, and no matter how much advanced warning I have, I'm always late. Always. My mother has taken to telling me wrong times for family gatherings because she knows I'll be late. But I never know if she's telling me an hour early, half hour, or the actual time. She mixes it up. The result? I'm generally about 15 minutes late all of the time, she tells me, and that makes us arrive with the other guests. It's brilliant, I think. I know she's doing this. It's not a secret. We discussed it. It makes me panic enough that I don't know the real time that I try my best to arrive on time, which ends up being late anyway, but not super late. OP's wife needs to get over herself. It's inconsiderate and rude to always be late. She knows it, I know it. People who are late know this. We also know that our on-time relatives are sick of it. OP is sick of it. OP sounds like he cleans and does his share of the duties to prepare for guests. The wife owes her spouse and her guests the courtesy of being on time. Info. Do you help your wife with preparing for guests? Like cleaning the house, setting the table, helping in the kitchen? Or is she doing all of the prep herself? I think we all know the answer. His chores are probably mowing the lawn and chilling the beer while she runs around getting everything ready for 7 hours. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk here or not? Please let us know.
If you know someone's always late, so you tell them an earlier time, which results in them not being late, where's the issue? These commenters on Reddit just love to whine and complain about everything. I can't take this anymore, Reddit boy.
I'm suing Karen, knowing it will destroy her family's finances. Between the ages of 12 and 17, my mother was moving me from one psychologist or therapist to another, claiming they weren't a good fit for me. I found out years after that she was offering them cash under the table to tell her what I was saying and probe me on particular issues she had covered up to determine how much I knew or suspected. When they refused, she switched them. I found out a few years ago that the last guy she took me to, ages 15.5 onward, a psychiatrist she left me with for over a year, not only did take the extra money to tell her what I was sharing, which I already kinda knew, but the medication he put me on was at her request. There was no medical reason for me to be on any medication, and on top of that, the medication mix I was prescribed was a no-no to combine due to serious counteracting. The medication had a demonstrative, harmful effect on my general health, with side effects I still suffer to this day. I lawyered up, gathered overwhelming and indisputable proof, and started the legal process to sue the crap out of him. Realistically, we're looking at a mid to high 7-figure amount. A few weeks ago, he had a heart attack and passed. I ran into, or was ambushed by, his widow recently. She was remarkably collected, numb, and informed me that she did not have the mental bandwidth to handle this lawsuit as she is grieving and taking care of the kids. 2 kids between the ages of 8 to 12, I believe, as he was the sole breadwinner. She also let me know that they did not have the ability to pay out the amount the lawsuit was probably settled for, and she would have to drain college funds and sell their family house, cabin house, and a place that houses her parents, leaving them, herself, and the kids homeless. 5 people. She begged me to accept a much lower settlement offer and not rob her kids of not only their father, but also their childhood home, all of their memories, and their future. Here's where I could be the jerk. I told her no, nothing else, looked her in her eyes, and just said no. From what my lawyer advised me, you do not engage in conversations with people you are legally opposing. I started walking away, and she teared up, saying his heart attack was from the stress of the lawsuit, asking, do I really want to punish the kids for what their father did? I told her, do not contact me again, and got out of the store. Knowing their situation, I'm now having a moral dilemma. Even at 7 figures, I will not miss this amount, but I could do good with it. I have also lost my father young, so I know how devastating it would be to lose my home as well. But as much sympathy as I have for his family, it is on my torment he had built their life, and not just mine, as we have discovered. My lawyer, fiance, and family encourage me to let it play out. Am I the jerk if I don't settle for less? Edit. Won't his insurance cover this incident? Most medical malpractice policies do not cover liability that arises from criminal acts and inappropriate alteration of medical records, both of which he did and are included in the lawsuit, so his policy does not cover everything. Edit 2. Will you also sue your mother? There will probably be legal action taken as well against my mother, but for now, I'm taking one lawsuit at a time, as they are expensive and mentally draining. Suing the psychiatrist was much easier than suing my mother, so we started there. After this is done, we will explore options. Not the jerk. His familial wealth and ability to own all that he owned and create the college funds and the living situation his family has or had were partially built on his unethical behavior. He drew the benefits of his unethical actions, let them draw the consequences. If they have homeowners insurance, and if he had malpractice insurance, some of those may help cover the settlement. The malpractice insurance may be able to wiggle itself out from any liability because he was doing something illegal, but other insurance may help. This is where it is important to follow through. Someone that profits off of criminal actions will usually hide behind, "This money is for my family or kids or my mother." By letting them keep it, even if they've passed, it sets the standard as criminal actions are bad, but if you use the money nobly, you get to keep it. It's exactly this reason why as a society, we should take it back. You want potential criminals to know they will be worse off and the Faustian bargain won't work. That and their partners know the risk too. It's unfortunate for the family, but that's not OP's fault. Not the jerk. Their family home and cabin was paid for, at the very least, with your pain and illegal medicating, of which you're still suffering the repercussions of. And how many others did he hurt to save for his kids' college fund? Steady on and take care of yourself. Not the jerk. There's two options here. The first, she's telling the truth. Everything she says would happen. Here's the thing. Even if this is the case, you still deserve compensation for your suffering, both past and continued. Courts do not simply award seven-figure settlements like candy. Your experience was clearly horrific, and you deserve to be compensated. Put another way, the money and homes she and her family have at the moment were built on your suffering and that of other people like you. Option 2, she's lying. What she's not telling you is that her in-laws have backup college funds for the kids. By homeless, she means she'll have to rent rather than own, and she might have to sell 3 properties, but she has enough other possessions that she can sell and buy a new home. I'm more likely to believe that this is the case, that she's lying, because of this. She teared up, saying his heart attack was from the stress of the lawsuit. She's blaming you for trying to hold him accountable. She's saying that you trying to get justice for being medically mistreated was what ended her husband. She's telling you you've already ended her husband, so you owe her. She's trying to guilt you. Now, if she's telling the truth, she could easily have approached you through the correct channels and requested mediation or an out-of-court discussion where she put forth all of these details. The fact that she's trying to ambush you makes me think that if and when your lawyer looks at her and her family's financials, you'll find that there's a lot more to it than she told you, and she's trying to prevent that from happening. And that's without assuming that there's money hidden in offshore accounts. Given the amount of money a person would need to have to own 3 properties plus full college funds for 2 kids, I wouldn't be surprised if this were the case either. Personally, I'd say go for the 7 figures you're owed. If you're uncomfortable, ask your lawyer about the full details of her financials, and if there are any other sources of money she may have that she doesn't want to disclose. In-laws who will take care of her and the kids, rich old relatives who will pass on and leave her huge inheritances, stuff like that. Make sure you know what her financials are based on the facts, not her woe is me story. And make a call once you have all the information, not just what she wanted you to know. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know.
I'd say go for $2 million, to be honest. I can only imagine how many people's lives were negatively affected by that scumbag doctor.
How Mrs. Reliable got her jerk boss fired. Background. I've been working the retail business for over 20 years, and let me tell you, some of the managers they hire can do a better job, but I'm getting ahead of myself here. Over the years of doing retail, I have established a reputation for myself. I'm Mrs. Reliable. Need somebody to come in? They call me. Need someone to stay late? They call me. Need to switch with someone because management said no for your day off? They call me. You can probably see where this story might be going. This story takes place a couple of years ago when I worked at a major grocery store in my town as a cashier. This took place a couple of years ago, back in 2020. I'm on my 2 years at this store, and we went through so many people and managers, it wasn't funny. Literally, it felt like we had a revolving door with how much turnover and employment we had. Getting back to the story, I was a cashier, and the thing about me doing this job is that I have a tendency to be too good at my job. I was just hired to be a cashier. I was not a manager, nor a monitor, someone that is a step down from manager but doesn't have all the responsibilities of management, nor was I a customer service. However, I was trained for nearly all of the duties of someone who is. Need change? I went to cashier, got the money out of the drawer, and went to grab the change that they needed. Need an override? I came over to see what the problem was and did the override. I did all of this on top of my cashier duties and self-checkout duties. Then, Jerk came along. My manager at the time, let's call her Ashley. Ashley is the front-end manager, meaning she's in charge of everything that goes on at the registers, cash office, where all the money is, customer service, and the self-checkouts. Now, I liked Ashley. She was a really good boss, and I liked working with her. Ashley had gotten pregnant and was expecting her second kid. I was excited for her. Unfortunately, when Ashley came back though, she was no longer going to be a manager, nor was she going to be full-time. She decided to come back as part-time. I can't really blame her though. You're working 40 hours a week and are not allowed any overtime whatsoever. Plus, you can be working as early as 5 a.m. to working as late as when the last customer decides to leave. Last time that happened, they didn't get out until 11:15 p.m. Enter Jerk. If you ever wonder what happened to that spoiled brat in school whose mommy never said no and always got what they wanted, that's Jerk, all grown up in a manager's position. Jerk was the type of manager that if he told you to do something, he expected you to do it without any questions. Have plans after work? Jerk expected you to whip out your phone right then and there, cancel your plans, and come into work. Have a doctor's appointment? Jerk expected you to cancel that appointment and then come into work. If you told him no, he would just say in the most condescending tone, "Well, I need you to anyway," and then just stand there scowling at you the whole time, basically trying to intimidate you by making you feel so uncomfortable by the staring until you cave. The setup. Now, I had my fair share of awful managers, to the point where if I didn't need the money, I would have walked out right then and there and never returned. And I had my fair share of good managers. Jerk was somewhere in the middle, leaning more towards the walking out. Now, with me, I'll admit, over the years I developed a sassy, sarcastic personality. I'm blunt, no filter, say what's on my mind, and I don't put up with people's BS. Apparently, Jerk never got the memo of my not taking people's BS. Around this time, summer was ending, meaning we were in the now hiring stage, and many positions were starting to open up in the store. Keep this in mind. What Jerk did to get me to start my pro revenge. Strike one. I had out-of-patient vein surgery done on one of my legs, and I needed to take a few days off. Since I had some vacation time saved up, I used my hours for those few days that I didn't have to worry so much about not getting paid. Jerk called me a day before I was supposed to come in, asking if I can do a 9 to 1. I asked him 3 times over the phone, "Who's closing?" Because originally, I was supposed to close that day until I got my approval for my days off. Jerk never answered me, so I just figured they had it covered. I come in, and of course halfway through my shift, Jerk calls me over and says that they don't have a closer. Keep in mind that I asked him 3 times over the phone who was closing. Jerk wanted me to clock out to go home for a few hours and then come to work and close. I said no, and then he tried the whole guilt tripping about not having anyone, and that we really needed you to do this. I said no because 1, I'm really tired and just came off surgery like 3 days ago. 2, I already made plans with my husband for the evening. Of course, Jerk didn't like this, because the next time I came to work, Jerk was just being petty and passive-aggressive with me. Basically, he will either pretend that I'm not there, ignore me, or the transaction that he was doing was taking longer than it should, and then chastise me in front of the customers for taking too long to get to him. When I had my follow-up appointment with the vein doctor, Jerk asked me if I can come earlier. I told him no, I can't, because I have a doctor's appointment in the morning that day. Then he did his usual, "Well, we need you to do it anyway," and started to do that staring with me. Unfortunately for him, I'm used to this when it came to Karens and Kevins trying to intimidate me because something didn't come right. I quickly shut that down by getting the other cashier's attention when they need help with something or quickly grabbed a customer's attention. When I came in after my appointment, Jerk, with a smug grin, very loudly in earshot of the bigwigs from corporate visiting that day. "Well, OP, looks like you noticed that I didn't call you in because we didn't need you." I replied, "Good, because I wasn't able to come in early anyway." Strike 2. Remember how I said that the store had openings? Well, turns out customer service needed some help, and the only way to get there was to ask your manager. So I went to Jerk and asked about being at the customer service desk. With everything that I've already been doing, I was basically the front-end assistant manager without the pay and title. Jerk said that he would get back to me, especially since I've been doing a great job. 2 to 3 weeks later, I'm seeing people that I trained or have started months after I did getting promoted to customer service desk, while I stayed as a cashier with all the other responsibilities piled on top. The customer service desk position would have easily been a 50-cent raise. The monitor position would have been a 75-cent raise. And of course, Jerk didn't want to pay more for doing the exact same things that I was already doing. I was starting to get the message of, why pay for the cow when the milk is free? Strike 3. I was starting to look for another job at this point because I was getting sick and tired of how I was being treated, but I wanted to try and give this guy one last chance. So I found out that the seafood department in my store had an opening, and I even talked to the seafood department manager, Debbie, about me possibly being in her department. He was ecstatic and was willing to work around my college schedule. I had to talk to my manager, Jerk, in order to get the transfer going. I talked to Jerk, and he started to come up with any and all kinds of excuses to not have me transfer. I quickly shot that down, and even the one where he tried to say that I can't because another coworker was transferring, first time I've heard of this, but the coworker said they had no problem with me going. So I thought that was that, right? Wrong. 3 to 4 weeks have passed, and I've been getting nowhere with the whole transferring to the other department. Even Debbie was wondering why it was taking so long to get me to the seafood department and why the manager was dragging their feet with this. Turns out, Jerk blocked my transfer, and they wound up hiring a new employee to the seafood department. Jerk thought that if there were no positions available and he can just deny my transfer, that I have no choice but to stay. After an argument between the two of us about this, because I was calling him out on his BS, Jerk said the magic words, "Just do your job." Cue the malicious compliance. Just do my job? Okay. I was so glad that wearing a mask was required. Otherwise, Jerk might have seen my evil smile when I agreed to just do my job. Need an override? Sorry, but I'm not management, nor am I a monitor, so I can't do that. Let me go grab someone who can. Need change? Sorry, but I'm not management, nor am I a monitor, so I can't do that. Let me go grab someone who can. Jerk was at his wit's end and even tried to write me up for something. I quickly shut that down when I started to recite what being a cashier entails and what my actual job of being a cashier is. And I told him that if he wants me to continue with all of those responsibilities, that he needs to promote me so I can do all of those responsibilities. He quickly stepped back into being his passive-aggressive behavior that I quickly shut down. I eventually found another job with better pay and better benefits and handed in my resignation of me leaving in 10 days. That jerk tried to deny and say, "No, you have to give us 2 weeks' notice." I quickly shut that down with a response. You wouldn't be giving us a 2 weeks' notice if you were going to fire us, or lay us off, or let us go. Just a 2-minute warning. Cue the petty revenge. Now, you're probably wondering what could I have possibly done for the petty revenge, right? Well, there was an old saying, never hurt the golden goose. Well, readers, what do you think happens to a department that is solely dependable on one person whose reputation is Mrs. Reliable? Need me to come in on my day off? Sorry, I can't. I have plans. Need me to stay late? Sorry, I already made plans. Someone called out? Sorry, I can't make it. I did this throughout my entire rest of my stay at that place. Jerk couldn't do anything about it either, and it was starting to get to him on what happens when you rely heavily on someone else but treat them so badly that they actually decide to leave. Jerk's performance, because I wasn't there to cover himself, was starting to take a toll. He had to do so much now, of his own responsibilities, and there wasn't a thing he could do to me. He kept trying to be extra passive-aggressive with me, to which I just smiled and waved and said goodbye to everyone but him. Now this wouldn't be a pro-revenge without the pro-revenge. After talking to a friend of mine about what happened when I worked there, he told me to report this to the district manager because that kind of behavior isn't good for the workplace. Cue the pro-revenge. I got the email address of the district manager from my friend, and then I went back to the store as a customer. I kept in touch with a couple of my old coworkers and kept asking them how things were going and how's work going. None of them had a problem in venting to me on how bad things were getting with Jerk. I asked if they didn't mind if I put their name in the complaint or if they just wanted to be anonymous. A lot of them chose the latter. I whipped out my phone using the quick memo app that I had, and I quickly wrote the notes in my phone, the date, and the register that the cashier was on at the time. I sent that email with the attached notes and with the entire account on my part as well to the district manager. Now, this wouldn't be pro-revenge if it just stopped there. I took it a step further. You see, with the receipts that we get, there is a survey on the bottom of every receipt, and management kept trying to boost us to get customers to take the survey because it helped with the story front and all the points that the store gets. Well, here's the thing about the survey. When you fill out the survey, including the comments, everyone gets to see it. And I mean everyone. Jerk, the assistant store manager, the regional manager, the district manager, and the representative of corporate get to all see it. So you can imagine what I did. Need a snack for school? Filled out the survey. Needed groceries? Filled out the survey. I filled out the survey every time, and I made sure to put everything that Jerk was doing on those surveys, including how he treated his employees. 3 months after I left, the person they hired back in seafood to make sure I couldn't go back there quit. 6 months after I left, Jerk was nowhere to be found. A new manager took over for him, and no one seems to know what happened to Jerk. We're going to court? Okay. The setting, United States, northern neck of Virginia. The situation, bought land and built a house on it. Back when my wife and I were much more newlywed than we are now, we hired ourselves an architect and went whole hog on having our cozy little dream home designed. While this was being done, we went shopping around for a parcel of land on which to have it built, which went quickly and easily, and we even got a pretty nice deal on a half-acre lot that was just far enough back in the sticks for us to be happy, but close enough to our jobs that it wasn't much of a commute. Best part of all? No homeowners association. There weren't any active back in that area because, point blank, it was full of poor people back there. Dirt poor country types and working poor wage slave types. We made very sure with our lawyer that no previous owner had ever had the title amended to allow for any HOA nonsense as well, because that's a thing some real estate developers like to do. They'll buy up a property, get the title amended to force the membership of that property into a local HOA that they usually operate or are in cahoots with those that do, and then resell it with that as a new requirement for any prospective buyer to automatically agree to when they sign the title. Flash forward to August of 2019. Lockdown was just around the corner, but nobody knew that yet. Everything was that which passes for normal out in those parts, and my wife and I had since moved to a different location, but retained that property as one of our various rentals. It was our dream home for several years, and we loved that place. Moving was tough. It was a good neighborhood out there, and folks were very welcoming. Then a company that's totally not named Ryan Homes or anything even slightly similar came in and spent some years buying everything up back there that got the market and pressuring folks into selling, which worked out for them only too well. And of course, they gentrified everything. For 3 years and some change, there was massive amounts of the old being torn down and hauled out and the new being built up and sold. The HOA was built right in because of course it was. Folks with money enough to throw down on poorly built houses that looked nice from the front moved in 1 by 1 and 2 by 2. Property values in the area skyrocketed. Property taxes skyrocketed right along with them, and more of the less poor people were forced to sell because they got taxed out of their own homes. My wife and I knew what was coming from the get-go. We knew these jerks from totally not Ryan Homes were going to come sniffing around our way, not to try to buy us out, but to see if they could threaten us into joining the HOA that they were installing. It was inevitable. Lots of information is public record. They knew we had money. They knew we were living below our means by 2 orders of magnitude. They knew we clearly meant to be exactly where we were because we sure didn't have to be. They knew they didn't have a chance of pricing us out on taxes, so they tried nagging us and coming right up to the line on harassment, always to talk to us about joining the HOA. They failed. They got told by one expensive lawyer to find something else to do before we all got super busy helping them find things to worry about. And so they desisted for some years. Then my wife and I moved and got the property set up as a rental. Absolutely not Ryan Holmes starts bothering our tenants there, both trying to get them to pressure us into putting the property into the HOA as well as getting our tenants riled up with the most outrageous lies about what could happen if we, the owners, don't protect our renters better. My wife and I were livid after hearing about this crap, and so we got a hold of definitely not Ryan Holmes to let them know that this was our formal request that they stop bothering our tenants and that all further communications would be from our really expensive lawyer. They must have assumed we were bluffing, or maybe whoever was in charge of thinking that day didn't show up for work, because they just kept right on with their nonsense. It got so bad that they were even sending fake, but convincing looking envelopes with eviction notice that upon being opened said, "Could be what you find in your mailbox one day without our wondrous HOA," and containing information about the benefits of the HOA. We gathered it all up and got the tenants to talk to our lawyer and got the police involved to get the ball rolling on a harassment investigation. Another formal request to cease and desist was sent to Ryan Holmes by the very expensive lawyer, which they utterly ignored. I think their guy that's supposed to come to work and think about things quit a long time ago. Maybe he never told anyone. Maybe nobody noticed. Whatever the situation on their end, when my lawyer talked to their lawyer told my lawyer that their client was doing everything legally and that if we wanted to pursue the matter in court, that was what we would have to do. So we did. I'm not sure what kind of lawyer magic my lawyer and his fellow legal demons worked on this front, but we were in court for 1 single hour when my lawyer and their 4 lawyers and the judge had a private talk about the preliminary hearing. Half hour later, and the lawyers from Ryan Holmes comes back into court looking like a quartet of cats that had been ticked off. My lawyer takes his seat beside me and says they're going to settle. And I was like, I didn't think we were that far along into this yet. What happened? And he said, they built 51 homes in a county of concern over 2 years. Every single one of them was inspected before close of a sale by a real estate agent that never actually got around to getting her home inspector license. And that's how it was that Ryan Holmes, the whole time, paid me 10 grand to not sue them, while they got seriously did over by the county. I got 10 grand in the settlement, which my wife and I gave to the tenants in that property because they deserved it, and we really didn't need it anyway. Am I the jerk for being brutally honest with my infertile sister-in-law? My younger brother has been with wife for about 7 years, 5 dating, 2 married. In the early years, my husband and I put in a lot of effort to get to know her as my brother lived with us and she would be over almost every day. It just never happened. Even when my husband would drive her an hour out of the city to see her parents sometimes, he could barely get 5 words out of her. So we figured she was shy or didn't like us or whatever, and eventually just stopped pushing. When we had our first kid, it was the same deal. The one time she was around our kid for the holidays, she just said she didn't really like kids and walked off, which is fine. They're our spawn. We don't expect others to like them, so we haven't pushed our kids on them. We still invited her and my brother to baby showers and birthdays and events. We have 2 kids now, but always made it clear they didn't have to come if it wasn't their thing, and they never did. My other brother and his husband are child-free, but love being uncles. They come around a lot. They spend a lot of time with our kids. It's great, and we are very lucky. Well, recently, my younger brother and sister-in-law started trying and learned that she is infertile. Obviously, I feel awful for them, as I can't imagine how it would feel. I reached out to my brother about how he wanted us to deal with things going forward, as I'm expecting again, and I didn't want to do anything or invite them to anything that would hurt, even though they never come. Well, my brother said they wanted invites and would be coming to things now. I was a bit surprised, but as he said, they did show up to my youngest's birthday party. It was a disaster. My sister-in-law would not stop nitpicking my husband and I and our kids. Our kids were too loud. I got the wrong food. They needed better manners. They needed better clothes. The kicker was when she kept trying to force my youngest to let her pick her up. She doesn't know her, so she didn't want her to pick her up. She went to my older brother's husband instead. My sister-in-law then declared since my existing kids were brats, she would just be the godmother and best aunt to my expected one, and that they, brother and his husband, could have the others. I told her flat out that my kids aren't brats. They just don't know her, and she doesn't get to play house with my new baby and ignore my other kids under any circumstances if she wants to be an involved family member. She argued with me, so I also told her she had plenty of opportunities to be in our and the kids' lives, and I don't like how she's suddenly bursting in and being rude and controlling. Obviously, I understand her recent fertility news is part of the reason she's acting like this, but I don't think that means she can't be held responsible for her words and actions or act like she's entitled to my kids. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. I thought this was going somewhere very different regarding infertility, but infertility in no way excuses her behavior here. Entitled parents think I'm not normal because I'm not what they expected, and so they hate me. I, 26 female, come from an average South Asian family. Being born a female means you're either married with kids or still living with your parents at this age. I'm the latter. My parents have been told by my extended family that they're the best parents in the world because my extended family as adults are jerks basically. So my parents really take it to heart and are convinced that they are indeed the best parents in the world. I agree that they had gone through a rough time raising us. We're a group of 5, 3 girls and 2 boys, so it couldn't have been easy. And we're all nice kids as well. But they're very concerned that we're not doing the conventional, stereotypical South Asian kids thing like everyone else, so they believe they're still perfect. It's only that we're not normal. I'm the main target because I have my own life. I've never had a romantic relationship because I like being alone better. I didn't become a doctor like they wanted me to. I follow international relations and gender studies instead. Instead of kids, I have cats, whom I love like one would love their kids. Instead of getting a husband, I'm career-focused and pursuing education. And worst of all, when they try to control and subjugate me, I fight back. When they compare me to others, I compare them with the parents of the person/people they're comparing me to. I earn my own money and spend it on things I love, mostly my cats. I am a writer and I am a reader and I am a fighter. For them, all of this is just not normal. There's something wrong with me because I don't fit into the mold that they created, and me not fitting in would essentially take their best parents title away. But my father doesn't speak to his kids like they're humans. I pointed out that I didn't like the way he speaks to me, so he said I was disrespectful. My mother likes to imagine I don't exist and pretends not to hear me. She has sharp ears to catch if it's something about them, but if I'm talking about a concern, she pretends not to hear me. But still, they believe they are the best parents in the world and that there's something inherently wrong with all of their kids. Edit. Wow, I wrote this out of sadness and frustration yesterday night, and I woke up to see it as blown up. Thank you everyone for your kind words, but I think there's a few things to clarify. Sorry that I didn't mention clearly. 1. I do not have a degree in gender studies. I have a degree in social statistics, which can get me a job anywhere else but here. I work as a math teacher. I'm interested in gender studies, but I went to a public university thanks to free education we have here, and I was selected for social statistics, and my university didn't let me study anything else. Selecting your majors isn't simple here, especially if college is free. Also, for free higher education, you need to pass your GCSEs with good results, and I only did enough to get me into the social statistics degree. Karen demands I lower the child support I receive from my ex. My daughter's dad, male 25, and his fiancée, female 28, want me to lower the child support that I receive. My daughter, who's 3, lives with me, female 23, and I go through the state for child support. They stated that the original amount he was approved for was too much and dropped down to half of that. I was fine with it at first. It would help pay for childcare fees and school supplies, and I've supported her solely by myself for 2 years now. I didn't get paid for the first or second month yet, and when the state started pulling from his checks, they complained that it was too much. They want to go down again to help save for the wedding. I feel conflicted because I'm happy that he's happy, but as a single mother, it's been a struggle. I don't ask for money from them at all, and they do not want her full-time either, which I'm fine with. My daughter means everything to me. They want to make an appointment to lower the amount, and I don't have the money at this moment for a lawyer to argue it. They both make twice the amount I do, so I don't understand the big deal. For additional context, I live alone with my daughter. He's engaged to my cousin, and they do not give me any information about where she's going with them and do not ask for her or call her outside of his weekends. Not the jerk. Your cousin chose to marry a man that already has a kid. Your ex is responsible for supporting his kid. Do not lower the child support. Your expenses will continue to rise. If you give in to this pair now, wait until they have a kid. They will double down trying to get you to reduce the child support because now they have a kid of their own to pay for. OP. The fiancé does have a kid already, and although I understand that kids are expensive, he does so much more for that kid than I've ever seen him do for his daughter. What worries me the most is that she works for the county that we live in, and I'm always living in fear that they'll use something against me. But this is the most affordable living area that the state offers. Well, what do you think? Should OP lower the child support or not? Please let us know.
I think she should get more, to be honest. Few things irk me more than deadbeats who don't want to take care of their kids.
Am I the jerk for letting my daughter wear a tiara to my cousin's wedding? I'm 32, female, and my daughter, Chloe, who's 4, has a fascination with princesses. She loves the color pink, wears only dresses, and has an array of tiaras she wears everywhere except at preschool where she can't, but she does have it in her backpack. My cousin, 33, male, Alex, fake name, invited us to his wedding, which was this past Saturday. Chloe was excited because she got to dress up and stay dressed up the entire time. She also couldn't wait to see the bride's dress. She asked if she could wear her princess tiara, and I said of course. We got to the wedding on time. However, the start time was delayed for unknown reasons. 15 minutes after it was supposed to start, one of the bridesmaids came out and told me that the bride, Jen, who's 31, female, was refusing to come out because my daughter was wearing a tiara. I thought she was joking, but she wasn't. Apparently, the bride was also wearing a tiara and wanted to be the only one wearing it. I told the bridesmaid that Chloe loves tiaras and always wears them. The bridesmaid said, "Not today she isn't," and told me it needed to be removed. I said no. The bride is a grown woman and was being petty over a kid's tiara. The bridesmaid left for a couple minutes, and then Alex himself came out. He told me to leave. I asked why, and he said because I won't tell Chloe to take off the tiara. I said this was ridiculous, and Alex said it's not my wedding, and when I get married, then Chloe can wear one to mine, but that I'm officially uninvited regardless. Others around me told me to just take it off, and I wouldn't. Alex's mom came over and escorted us out. Chloe was upset and crying because she feels she did something wrong, and I'm upset because I can't believe someone would be jealous over a literal 4-year-old. I also feel bad because Chloe was really looking forward to seeing Jen's dress because she loves wedding dresses. But literally, no one is on my side. Am I the jerk? Edit. Someone asked if my cousin has an illness. I said no, but the bride has Asperger's, and they said that's important for you all to know. You seriously need to parent up and teach your kid that there's a time and a place for indulging your inner princess and a time and a place for sitting back, following dress codes, and letting other people shine. For example, at their own wedding. You were asked nicely, but you were petulant and entitled. You caused this. It's not over a kid, it's over your lack of parenting. There's a reason nobody is on your side. You're the jerk. I agree with this. 4-year-olds should be taught time and a place for attire. She didn't wear a tiara to preschool, as mentioned by the OP, so a wedding is also a specific occasion. I personally would find it cute if I were the bride, but everyone is different, I guess. I think the bride's wishes, while over the top here, should be respected. Yeah, wedding conventions are stupid, so it's a frequent gray area here. But no one's saying OP's a jerk for thinking the bride is being extra. She's a jerk for digging in her heels for no good reason, refusing to teach her daughter an age-appropriate lesson about etiquette, and ruining her daughter's day on top of upsetting the bride. I'd bet they were quick to yeet her because stuff like this is part of a larger pattern. I honestly think everyone sucks here. I legit wouldn't care if a 4-year-old had on a tiara at my wedding. I also would not refuse to tell my daughter she had to take off the tiara if the bride sent someone out to tell me that the bride refused to walk down the aisle as long as she was wearing it. The daughter now feels guilty and had to miss the wedding she was all excited for, which is a really crappy position to have put her in, OP. Sorry, but you're the jerk. Yes, it was absolutely over-the-top idiotic for the bride to obsess over a 4-year-old wearing a tiara, but once she told you to take it off, you should have removed it. She's the bride, it's her party. She makes the rules. Yes, your daughter would have been disappointed, but I guess she was even more disappointed to miss the whole event. Your daughter is literally a 4-year-old kid, for goodness sake. How insecure must the bride be that she feels threatened by something like this? On the other hand, you could have handled the matter delicately and asked Chloe to remove the tiara to defuse the situation. I think that would have been much, much better than letting them escort you out. For everyone. I'm going with everyone sucks here. Edit. You know, next time you know that the bride has Asperger's, mention it in the post maybe, because this makes you the jerk in the situation. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the bride? Please let us know. So, you need a man to do all of that? Okay. Context. Since I, male 28, was 11, my parents have been divorced. My mother, female 64, got custody, and we would see our father one weekend every 2 weeks. I also have a little sister, female 25, so I ended up being the only man in the house. Growing up, our mother always taught us that we needed to participate in house duties, such as washing the dishes, taking out the laundry, preparing food. We would take turns, and during the week, us kids would take care of all of that because our mother would come back from work exhausted and expected to not have anything to do once at home. And we kind of were okay with that, only that as we were young, we would sometimes, often, forget to do stuff, and it would cause a fight. But we ended up learning to not forget. Only there are some tasks that wouldn't be fairly distributed. My mother always needed a man close so that she could give him some work to do. And even though she never remarried and only dated 1 or 2 men after she divorced, she always found some male friend or some friend's husband or boyfriend to whom she could ask for help. Until at some point, people started to realize that she was being close to them for the only purpose that she could ask them for help. Yeah, she's one of those tit-for-tat persons, where if she does something for you, you have to give back something equivalent or you disappear from her life. So basically, she lost a few friends. But at some point, I was old enough to be useful, and she started asking me for help on these matters. OP, the internet box doesn't work anymore. Can you look it up? It needs a man's brain to understand that. OP, I bought some furniture from IKEA. Can you build it for me? It needs a man's brain to understand that. OP, can you carry luggage? Only a strong man can do that. OP, can you look up why my computer is being so slow? It needs a man's brain to understand that. And so on. I asked repeatedly that she looked at how I dealt with these things so that she could understand herself and fix it alone next time. Especially when it was something so basic as to restart the internet box. But she didn't want to learn. She just wanted me to do it because she didn't want to have to deal with it herself. And it went on for a few years, growing from just restarting the box to piercing into walls so that she could hang mirrors and stuff. For info, I never did any of all of that before she asked me to do it. So I guess it made me learn it, which was a good thing. But what bothered me was that she just didn't care and expected me to do all that because it was normal. And me knowing about it or not was not a question. I am a man, so that's my job. And as I was growing up, and her still not learning anything, I got more and more frustrated. Until this one final time. I don't remember what specific task it was, where she told me that it was a man's job, needing a man's brain. I had a huge sigh, did the job, then went back to my business. Cue the malicious compliance. As some tasks require a man's brain, it's obvious that some others require a woman's touch, as we men are all about technique, big thinking, and strength work. So the following days, I started to wash the dishes and put them back anywhere in the kitchen, because, you know, us men have no idea about what goes where in the house. We just fix things and carry heavy stuff. I forgot to get food back in the fridge, because, you know, that's already cooked, so it won't spoil. I overcooked my steaks, eggs, pizza, because, you know, I was so busy thinking about all this technique stuff that I didn't have the brain space to think about checking food. Laundry would be spread out to dry, one piece onto another, because it is more efficient as it saves space. And about cleaning the house, let's just say it was a waste of time, because I could perfectly live in my own mess. Of course, it didn't take long for my mother to get angry at me for not taking care of the house, or for doing it so stupidly. To which I answered, sorry, I mean, you know, it needs a woman's brain to understand how to take care of a house correctly, which yes, is total BS. But so is saying that all the work she made me do was only for men. So at first she was dumbfounded, then the storm unleashed. It still is one of the biggest fights we've ever had to this day. Things calmed down and I went back to caring properly, until she asked for my man's brain again. From this point, I stopped caring. I would forget the laundry in the washing machine, let the dishes pile up in the sink, and would only do my man job. She would still get really angry, ordering me to do stuff, which I would ultimately do, completely half-effortly, meaning that she had to do it all over after me because half of the dishes were just out on the kitchen, not at their place. Laundry was all stuck together to dry and so on. Mood in the house was tense, and it wouldn't need much for a fight to blow up. Until at some point, she asked me to help her do this or that, not to do it for her anymore. So I helped. I showed her how to do it. I took time for it. We did it together multiple times until she finally learned how to do it. I then started taking care of my duties as I did before, and things went back to normal, finally. Am I the jerk for threatening to call the cops at a party? 8 years ago, I wrecked my motorcycle and had my right leg amputated above the knee. I get around fine with a good quality prosthetic leg. My friends helped me a lot right after the incident when I was really depressed. They're great guys, but they can be a little childish and frat bro types. I love them and they literally saved my life, but I've definitely matured more than some of them. One of my oldest friends, we'll call him Jay, just bought a new house and wanted to host a Super Bowl party. 2 of the guests are guys I know well, the rest are distant acquaintances. Well, my stump is itching like crazy. By now, we've all had a few drinks and everyone is pretty into the game, so I discreetly remove my prosthesis and prop it up on the couch next to me. Later on, one of the guys I don't know well sees it. He asks if he can look at the prosthesis. I say sure. He messes with it for a bit and then starts joking that he's going to pawn it. How much do you think I can get for this cyborg leg, etc. I'm laughing along until he moves it to the other side of the room. Without it or a mobility aid, I'm a sitting duck, so it makes me real nervous when it's out of reach. He says he's not done looking at it and goes to get another drink. When he comes back, I tell him it's not funny, I need it back. He holds it out about 10 feet away and says, "Come get it." Now, I'm not about to hop over and arm wrestle this guy for it, so I pull out my phone, make eye contact with Jay and say, "Either your friend gives my leg back or I'm calling the cops." The room went silent. The guy handed me my leg back and said, "Jeez, man, I was just messing around." I left pretty shortly after. I was heated and the mood was awkward. Still, I didn't think that I was the jerk until Jay texted me saying that I overreacted. Now I feel like a jerk because I know I did ruin his party and yelled at his friend in his house. Jay pointed out I wasn't going anywhere, so I went off for no real reason. He's right. I wasn't going anywhere and didn't need it for any reason except that I get anxious when I can't get to it. It's part of my body at this point, and I can't walk without it, so yeah, I'm a little attached. Asking my other 2 friends, one said that I was out of line, the other said I was justified. Looking for a tiebreaker vote. Not the jerk. Holding your leg hostage to mess with you is far from okay. Forget that guy. Any person who saw that interaction and thinks that you were in the wrong is not a friend. They should all be ashamed of themselves. Not a jerk 1,000 times over. 100% not the jerk. In a similar story, I was at a party as a teen and a friend wanted to check out my new glasses. I get it. My lenses are kind of thick and no one ever sees me without my glasses because I can't see without them. I let him try them on, and after laughing about how terrible they were, he got up and left the room, saying he was going home with them. I can't see without glasses, and they were expensive. I literally could be 5 feet away from my husband, and without my glasses, I couldn't tell if he was a dude or a chick. And that jerk just laughed and ran off with them. I waited a minute, like, haha, very funny, but he didn't come back, and I couldn't chase him down because I couldn't see him. Everyone is a vague pinkish blur. I texted the host and said if my glasses weren't back on my face in 1 minute, I was calling the cops. The glasses are $600 with insurance. Got told I was overreacting, but as soon as I started to dial, bam, someone dragged the jerk back in and gave me my glasses back and made him apologize. Messing with people's medical aids is one of the biggest jerk moves someone can pull. You are definitely not the jerk, but you need better friends. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his friends? Please let us know. I've never understood how friends can think it's okay to just blatantly disrespect you. Maybe that's part of the reason I don't have any. At least you got me, Karen. Don't remind me. Am I the jerk for refusing to change my son's chosen first and middle name per my brother-in-law's request? So, my wife, female 32, and I, male 31, struggled with infertility for a while. My wife's now 7 months pregnant with a baby boy. We started searching for a first and middle name, and since I come from Irish origins, we decided to settle on my great-uncle's first name and my grandfather's middle name. We told my in-laws about it. My brother-in-law, a doctor with a superiority complex, Thought the name was awesome. Unbeknownst to us, he and his wife decided to basically take not just the first, but the middle name and use them for their son, who was born 3 weeks ago. I was not pleased, and I hated that they basically stole the names, but my wife and I decided to ignore them and just keep the names. We didn't make a fuss out of it until my brother-in-law called to ask about the new names we chose. I told him we're still sticking with the original first and middle names we chose. He sounded confused, saying we no longer have a right to these names after he and his wife claimed them, and said it was strange that we're still planning on using them. I laughed and said that they didn't claim crap. Fact of the matter is, he and his wife stole those names from us and should deal with it. He got mad and demanded I put my wife on the phone, but we were both already on speaker, and my wife backed me up 100%. Brother-in-law then hung up and did 2 things. 1, send his family, father-in-law, mother-in-law, sister-in-law, etc., to come at me specifically. And 2, send long lists of first and middle name suggestions, demanding we choose from them and leave him and his family alone. My wife got into a fight with him just a day ago and told him he and his wife didn't even choose those names out of love, but out of spite to stick it to me for no reason. Father-in-law came over in the evening and started yelling at me, accusing me of turning his daughter against her brother, calling me a pity jerk, and claiming I own neither of those names despite having familial ties with. I said if I don't own those names, then his doctor's son sure as heck doesn't. I told him to leave, but he kept arguing till I said I'd call the police. He left then, but is now getting mother-in-law constantly calling my wife, telling her to do the right thing if she still wants a relationship with her nephew. The conflict gets worse, and my wife's caving in and cracking under pressure. I keep refusing to change the name. So Reddit, am I the jerk here? Not the jerk. He basically said, hey, I like what you're doing, so I'm gonna, and you can't. That's not how the world works. Also, that family sounds messed up, man. OP. Exactly, and pretty much sums up my brother-in-law's attitude. No one says anything because, hey, he's a doctor and deserves respect and grace for being a hardworking man. In which case, this should be your hill to die on, and they're also going to be treating your impending baby in the same condescending manner. Tell mother-in-law and father-in-law that they're being put in a timeout, and they should ask themselves if they care about their future relationship with their other grandchild. Not the jerk. Y'all need to send a message to your in-laws that you're launching a cooling off period of X days in which you will not be accepting communication from them. After that, the topic of names will not be mentioned, and each infraction will be met with radio silence. First infraction, 1 week. Second, 2 weeks. Third, 4 weeks. You need to make clear the subject is closed and that stupidity has consequences. When are they going to put out more breakfast soup? Was reminded of this today. Happened years ago. A regular stops me at a rather expensive buffet brunch place. We had breakfast and lunch stuff, light stuff and heavy stuff. You could get a fruit crepe at the same time as raw oysters on the half shell, steak tips, scrambled eggs, and a Belgian waffle. Then follow it up with cocktail shrimp and a blueberry muffin, a rather large selection, a selection that did not include breakfast soup. Hey, excuse me, when are they going to put out more breakfast soup? Breakfast? I'm sorry, what? We don't offer any kind of breakfast soup. Of course you do. I get it every time, but you're all out right now. I just want to know if you'll put it out more soon. Ma'am, could you come with me and point out where the breakfast soup is? Then I can help you better. Fine. It's right over here. She then walks me to the line and points to the tray that normally has our hamburgers with mushroom gravy on top. Except we mixed half and half, 70-30 ground beef with pork sausage to make these patties. These very, very fatty, greasy patties. And we lined the pan with bread slices to soak up all of the fat and grease, and then laid out all the patties on the bread, and then covered them with mushroom sausage gravy. And even with the bread, by the time most of the patties were gone, the bread was almost swimming. Turns out, this lady didn't like the burger part, and she was just scooping fat-soaked soggy bread, hot liquid pork grease, and mushroom sausage gravy into a bowl, and just eating that with a spoon, aka her breakfast soup. I tried to very gently and non-judgmentally explain that the bread was for soaking up the fat and grease from the burger patties and normally was not eaten. I'll never forget her look of horror and embarrassment when she realized she had been eating essentially the fatty trash of this particular dish and absolutely loving it. I did tell her more would be out shortly, but she zipped it back to her table without another word, face turned completely red. It was 6 months before any of us saw her again. She apparently chose to forego the breakfast soup after that. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay the babysitter for new glasses after my daughter broke her old ones? I'll preface this by saying that I, male 35, am a widower with 2 kids who are 9 and 11. I recently got back to work, and since I work night shifts, I had to get the kids a babysitter. They're at school during the day, and my sister stays with them. I was able to find a babysitter with the help of a coworker. Actually, they're related, and things have been going pretty well, except for a few days ago. The babysitter called me while I was at work to tell me that my 9-year-old daughter broke her glasses. I got home, heard both sides of the story, and came to a conclusion that it was in fact an accident. But the babysitter said my daughter broke them intentionally after she refused to let her go outside late in the evening. I asked my 11-year-old daughter, and she said that the babysitter's story is accurate, but since she and her sister have a beef then, I figured she lied to set her sister up. My 9-year-old daughter cried and said she didn't mean it and it was an accident. I apologized to the babysitter for the misunderstanding, but she insisted there was no misunderstanding and then asked me to pay her for a pair of new glasses. I was taken aback by her request and told her I thought we talked this out and rolled it out as an accident, but she insisted it wasn't an accident. I apologized but refused and said it was unfair to expect me to pay, especially since she didn't pay attention to keep her glasses safe regardless of whether it was an accident or not. The babysitter argued with me and then started crying, swearing that my daughter broke them to get back at her. My 11-year-old daughter sided with her, but my 9-year-old said she is only siding with the babysitter for her own benefits. The girls started fighting, and I ended up telling the babysitter to leave. She got my coworker involved, and she said that I should take responsibility and pay the babysitter for new glasses since she cannot afford them being a broke college student and is in need for glasses. I apologized but refused to pay. My coworker got upset and shamed me for condoning my younger daughter's actions and treating the babysitter poorly when she's the victim in this situation. It's been days and the babysitter is still wanting me to pay for new glasses, but I feel like she's trying to use the fact that I'm in dire need of help and is hoping to get extra money out of my pocket. You're the jerk. It doesn't matter if it was an accident or not. Your kid broke her glasses. You need to pay to replace them. You're the jerk. You are actually legally responsible for accidents as well as deliberate breakages that happen on your property to people you have employed. Quite apart from that, you are teaching your daughter that her actions have no consequences if she didn't mean it. Your coworker is right, and even your 11-year-old daughter can see this. Grow up, take responsibility, and make good the damage. If you don't, I hope she sues you, because she would win. You're the jerk. Do you even hear yourself? Whether it was an accident or not is irrelevant. However, in this case, it seems more likely that your younger daughter is lying because she's afraid of being in trouble. What is relevant is that your daughter was involved in breaking the babysitter's medically necessary equipment while she was working for you. I suspect this is not the only example in your life when you've tried to weasel out of paying for something you should be responsible for. Just pay for the new glasses already. If your babysitter is still babysitting for you while you do this to her, I hope she wises up and stops. Babysitters are a valuable resource, and this one is making it possible for you to earn your living. Am I the jerk for canceling my wedding because my family and my in-laws wouldn't shut up about it? I'm being called a bridezilla left and right about this, and my fiance is being called names for apparently doing as I say, despite that being a mutual decision. My family and my fiance's family have tried to have a say at our wedding in every aspect possible. How many guests we will invite, who we will invite, what kind of suit my fiance will wear, what kind of wedding dress I'll wear, what kind of venue we will book, what kind of food we will have, what kind of music we'll have, what song we will dance to. Everything we've planned, our families always judge and are unpleased and always have something negative to say. Planning our wedding has been more stressful and less fun for that reason. I feel like I can't have the wedding I want to have because they'll find a way to ruin it. At this point, I don't enjoy any of it, and neither does my fiance. We tried to make our boundaries clear with our family several times, and they'd get mad and somehow got worse whenever we tried to set boundaries. My fiance and I both decided we will not have our wedding and we will just go to the courthouse with our two best friends as witnesses. And that's it. No parties, no venues, no receptions. Just us with our dream dress and suit with our two best friends. And after that, we'll book a restaurant to have some dinner with our 10 closest friends. That's all. Our families are controlling with the guilt tripping. Even my sisters, who used to remain neutral and even supported me sometimes, are now saying I'm taking it too far and that I'm manipulating my fiance about this too. They keep insulting us and telling us to change our decision. We demanded an apology from their behavior and then we might have our wedding, but they refused to see why they should apologize. We said we stand firm. Am I the jerk? Edit. Many people are asking who's paying. Our parents are helping us a lot financially, but we are also paying. Our parents use the financial support as a way to control our decisions. We wouldn't stand for that. They shouldn't offer to pay if they couldn't respect that the final decisions would be our own. For example, my in-laws refused to pay for the dress I picked because it was beige and not white. Our parents demanded we uninvite friends of ours to make room for relatives and friends of their own, and many other things. Not the jerk. We had our dream elopement. It was fantastic, best decision ever. Dressed up how we wanted, had a photographer. It was great. The best wedding is having total control. Hate when families hold their contribution over your head. Either help or don't help, but do not dictate if you are going to help. You're not allowed to be in pain because you're scaring your grandma. So I was working for about 7 hours yesterday. I'm 16, and I had a really tough day. I work at a grocery store, and I was the only CC, my position, for about 3 hours. On a Saturday afternoon, for perspective, we need at least 3 CCs to keep up with all the work that needs to be done on Saturday afternoons, and I was the only one. So the work of 3 people fell to me. That's all the bagging, all the getting carts, the cleaning, everything. It was all on me. And it's the day before Valentine's, so we were even busier than normal. Oh, and it never got above 5 degrees Fahrenheit, and the wind chill kept us negative all day. All in all, I ended up spending over 2 hours outside, pushing carts like there was no tomorrow. The time I spent inside was mostly bagging for 2 or 3 people at once. So, as you can imagine, I was exhausted when I got home. I laid down in front of the fireplace and didn't move for about 10 minutes. My mom gets down beside me and tries to get me to stand up. She tells me that I'm scaring my grandma, who was staying the night at our place. My dad walks over, upset as heck, and practically screams at me to get up. I tell him, truthfully, that I physically can't move. He doesn't care. So I pull myself up, trying desperately not to pass out, and try to go upstairs to take a shower. Only after all of this do they bother to ask me what's wrong. I tell them, I feel like I broke my back. My mom tells me that if this is what I'm going to act like when I get home from work, that I need to quit. I tell her that this is pretty unusual, even for a Saturday before a holiday. For those of you wondering, there were multiple CCs scheduled for that afternoon, but the one that would have been working with me when I was alone got snowed in at a ski resort with no cell service, so she couldn't make it. She couldn't even call anyone, so she got marked as a no-show, no-call. That upset me because she texted me via Wi-Fi and I passed all that information on to the manager. So now I'm sore as heck and I'm pretty upset at the manager. Lucky me. Edit. For those of you saying that I'm working too hard, you're right, but I'm doing the work because they need me to do it. It's called work ethic. I'm not doing it because I'm getting paid through the roof. I'm doing it because I care. Working hard enough to be in this much pain shouldn't be cause for insult. Edit 2. Guys, I got a ton of people thinking that I'm complaining about the work. I get that it was too much for me to handle, and I get that the manager was being a jerk for not giving me at least a little help. But I'm not complaining about it. It's work. Sometimes there's tough days, and sometimes there's easy ones. Also, this absolutely blew up, so there's no way I can respond to everybody. But thank you for all of the support. I really appreciate it. And by the way, my back is fine. I just needed a few days of nothing to recover. Karen pushes unsolicited diet advice onto me, so I showed off my abs to her. Last Saturday, I, 30 male, was meeting my girlfriend's, who's 25 female, friends for the first time. Since I'm currently in the middle of an intense weightlifting program, I'm eating a crazy amount. My girlfriend, being the champion she is, decided that we could go to a nice all-you-can-eat buffet in our city for lunch with her friends. We met in front of the restaurant where she introduced me to her friends, 2 women and 1 man. About 30 minutes into lunch, the conversation turned to fitness and nutrition because someone had asked what I was interested in. Around that time, I got my third full plate of ham, chicken, veggies, and a big bowl of macaroni because I could. I mean, I grew up with some serious food insecurity. If I'm going to spend $60 to eat at a buffet, I'm going to be the reason the buffet doesn't cost $50 instead. Around this time, one of our friends, a nutritionist, told me I was eating way too much. I honestly thought this crossed the line, because who the heck says something like that at a buffet of all places? I responded by assuring her that I was lifting really hard and trying to gain weight. This apparently was interpreted as an open invitation to give me more unsolicited advice, so she continued that I was going to put on a lot of body fat and overstress my organs eating like that all the time. Plus, I couldn't put muscle mass on that quickly anyway. I let her rant run its course, thinking it would be over soon, but she kept pushing the issue every time I said I was fine. This easily went on for 5 minutes while everyone else was talking about other stuff. Eventually, I got tired of it, stood up, and pulled up my t-shirt to show my abs. I told her I had been eating like this for several months and if she could show me where I was getting metabolic syndrome. She then continued debating about how I probably had a lot of visceral fat, 32-inch waist, and that she was only trying to help. Again, I told her I was fine and kept eating. Finally, the other people at the table remembered we existed and there was a lot of awkward silence. Well, yesterday, my girlfriend approached me and said her friends don't like me very much. We had already argued about this on Saturday after we all left, and I told her what I did was absolutely reasonable considering the circumstances. Now she's giving me these cryptic messages about how much she values her friends and how she has known them longer than she has known me. I'm afraid I overstepped a line, but was I really wrong here? Not the jerk. Your girlfriend should be mad at her friend that doesn't know when to drop the subject. Right? I would be mortified if my friend was badgering my boyfriend like that, especially when the first time meeting him. Badgering anyone like that, she showed herself to be a harassive, know-it-all jerk. Like so many dietitians, sorry to the good ones, but I've only met pushy ones. Dietitian at lunch with friends about me ordering meat, sauce, and asking for vegetables and salad. No carbs? That's not a healthy meal. Me. My doctor recommended cutting carbs to fix some health problems. X told me that you live in Y area. That's a lovely place. How long have you lived there? Her. You really should see a dietitian about that instead of listening to a doctor. Me. I'm good, thanks. X told me that you have kids. What age are they? Her. Doctors know nothing about healthy food. That's my area, and I can treat at family and friends' price. Me. Thanks, that's nice, but I'll stay with my doctor's advice. Turning to someone else and trying to ask them something, only to be cut off by the dietitian again, telling me to order potatoes or pasta to get a healthy meal. Me. My diet has made me lose 30 kilograms in 6 months. My fibromyalgia isn't even showing. I sleep at night. I have energy and I feel happy. It's working for me, so I don't need advice. Her getting angry about me pushing keto. You shouldn't push your diet on everyone else. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the nutritionist? Please let us know. Bruh, your girlfriend's friends sound whack. Tried to throw me under the proverbial bus, ended up totally backfiring on her. I was building an online training module at work that is intended to teach existing users how to work a new process. It has interactive elements, quizzes, segments to work through for a few sample scenarios, etc. Now, we had recently got a new associate director who, from what I can tell, advanced through the company by throwing other people under the bus. She gets promoted not for her own merits, but because at the end of the day, she has had less mud sticking to her than the other applicants. It's uncanny to the point that there simply had to be more to it than stupid office politics. I'll get to that in a bit. So, after I have the first draft of the module done, it gets sent out for the usual round of testing, and there are of course a couple things that need to be corrected. I build the module off the notes the subject matter experts leave me, and a few things inevitably get lost in translation. But this new associate director just rips it to shreds, complaining that it's completely incomprehensible, needs to go into much greater detail, asking questions about nearly every individual mouse click in the sample scenarios, and overall stating that it's impossible to follow. The thing is, this module is intended for our finance department, for people who have a background in finance and have already been trained on how to use our internal software. She is a training services associate director with a teaching background. The module isn't supposed to make sense to a former middle school social studies teacher, it's supposed to make sense to people with finance degrees. I push back and try explaining this to her in a million different ways, but she's having none of it. So I have to go back to the subject matter experts with her 20 pages worth of criticism. And at first, they think I'm joking. I had to forward her email before they finally believed me. So for the next 2 weeks, we're going over every nuance, including readdressing everything that was covered during their 3-week classroom training. How to set up their network drives, how to set up Outlook, including things as nuanced as, if you don't know how to set up your email signature, click here. I mean, really basic stuff that has nothing to do with what the module was originally supposed to teach. But I now had to include it all because our new associate director couldn't find the on switch if you staple their finger to it. This wastes my time, the subject matter expert's time, and time spent re-recording all the voice work. If you've done voice work in the past, you know you never get it done in one take. After it's all done, I send it back out for review and approval, and the associate director simply doesn't respond. A week passes. The finance director takes an interest in why this module is almost a month overdue. I go to forward the associate director's email again, except now I can't find it. Odd, seeing as how I have a hoarding problem when it comes to email. I check with one of the subject matter experts I was working with, he can't find it either. Turns out none of us can. It's gone. So I check with a friend of mine in IT who, after a little detective work, discovers that a week ago someone did a compliance delete on the Exchange server. This basically is a seek and destroy for messages meeting certain criteria. In this case, a specific phrase she used in her email. I start digging through Outlook, trying to find particular emails related to this that might be used to defend my actions, and they're all gone. Inbox, sent items, deleted items, every last one of them. Any email containing that particular phrase anywhere in it. This kind of thing is normally used by admins to mass delete spam or phishing emails from all users at once. Except in this case, someone apparently deleted emails that showed evidence of her awful decisions. My friend in IT can smell a juicy story a mile away and was very interested in seeing where this went. She recovered the deleted emails, and I promptly saved them to a flash drive. For the next few days, every time I had any email with this associate director's name on it, even unrelated stuff, you never know how something might fit together, I saved a copy to the flash drive. I informed the subject matter experts to do the same, and we started building our offline evidence locker. I didn't want to blow the lid on it just yet. I wanted to see if my suspicions were correct. Maybe a lifetime of watching spy movies and cop dramas had corrupted my thinking. Maybe there was another explanation. Who knows? It could happen. I'm not God. I don't know everything. I'll play defense. So after several weeks in total trying to appease this associate director's unquenchable thirst for irrelevant details, and then getting ignored for a week, she finally publishes it and sends it to the finance director to approve so it can go live. Woo! Except the module, which was supposed to be a 30-minute online course, now contained 3 hours of content and went down several irrelevant rabbit holes that had been deemed critical supporting information. As an analogy, imagine designing a training module to teach a nurse how to enter some new CPT codes and being told you have to teach him how to read too, because he might not know what words are. That's how much BS was rammed into this thing. And the finance director, of course, hated it and was surprised that such a rambling mess of a module would come from me of all people. So he calls a meeting with me and the associate director on Tuesday to get some answers, and sure enough, she immediately tried to distance herself from it. Tried to paint it as she made a couple suggestions, and I clearly went way overboard. How I must have sent her a different version than she approved and switched them afterwards. That's not even possible. It would get thrown back into a draft status. She kept trying to talk over me as I voiced my defense. And to his credit, the finance director finally just muted her so I could speak. And boy did I. I explained everything. I shared my screen, popped in my flash drive, and opened my copies of the emails that had supposedly been deleted. Every email exchange where she complained about the material, I pushed back, and she flat out ordered me to build the module in the way I did. She abruptly left the meeting and went offline. The finance director asked if I could send him a copy of all relevant files, and as I did so, I told him they might not be there later, and then explained what I had learned about someone in IT using the compliance delete. He assures me he'll look into it, and the crap immediately hit the fan. The associate director never logged back on. There was a massive internal audit where people from her previous departments were asked to provide statements. Leadership tried to keep it hush-hush, but you just can't keep something that big under wraps. I don't know the specific what's and hows, but the associate director and one of the IT managers had both left the company to pursue the next stage of their careers, and we sincerely wish them the best. I don't really do the social media thing, but over the next few days, as the rumor mill did what rumor mills do, I heard their crap absolutely blew up, and it came out that the associate director and that IT manager were having an affair. Now this all went down about a month ago, but as I wrote this post, I thought to check online court records. Both are now facing divorces, filed by their respective spouses. So yeah, there's a void in my direct leadership, in IT's leadership, and the entire IT department is getting a shakedown by information security to determine if there were any other leaks. I spent some time reflecting on why this whole series of events happened, and my best guess is she wanted to make a grand entrance by spearheading this masterwork training module that covered every possible scenario and contained any and all information anyone could possibly want. Then, as she started to realize how wasteful, rambling, and unnecessary it was, she realized that her grand entrance would be a grand face plant. So she tried to erase the evidence and pin all the nonsense on me to save face, but inadvertently set in motion the events that would expose her little arrangement with the IT manager. As someone who frequently has to watch training modules for work, I appreciate nothing more than a short and to-the-point presentation. Being told to watch a 3-hour training video for 30 minutes of relevant information would make me rethink my career choices. This, however, was quite enjoyable to read. Thanks for sharing. My boss demanded I serve all customers and fill all shelves, no matter how far past closing hours it was. So my first job I ever worked at for a few years was a grocery retail store with several different departments, including a deli for lunch meat and cheese, which is where I worked. One night I was working 1 p.m. to 9 p.m. 9 p.m. is when the deli and other special departments closed, and we were expected to be done and clocked out, but the rest of the store remained open 24/7 for general groceries. It was me and one other guy. We had an especially busy night, and we were a little behind on our cleaning as a result. But we had our meat slicing machines already coated with sanitizer after working for 15 minutes to get all the little meat chunks and shavings out of every corner, as we were pretty serious about making sure those things were clean as can be. It's about 8:55 at this point. We're almost late to leave, and the store we worked for did not like overtime. If you were getting any amount of overtime, you would get chewed out the next day for it, even for a little amount. A woman walks up to the counter and starts looking through the product. As we had a glass case filled with a bunch of types of our lunch meats pre-sliced and ready to go for bagging up. She looks at one and says, "I want this turkey right here, but I'd want it freshly sliced." I, of course, look to my coworker, and we both can see the 2 slicers we have are still covered in the sanitizer we use and are drying, as per the food safety protocol written on the bottle that says to allow 20 to 30 minutes minimum for the sanitizer to dry after application. I tell her, "Well, ma'am, we can't really do that right now. Our slicers are both being cleaned at the moment as the department is closed in 5 minutes, but I'd be glad to get you something here from our cold case." "So, you're not gonna slice it fresh for me? That's what you're saying?" I replied, "That's correct. I apologize." Without another word, she walks away, and myself and my coworker go back to what we were doing, and we finish cleaning and go home after about 5 more minutes, narrowly clocking out on time. Fast forward 2 days later. Me and the same coworker come in and start getting to work like a normal day. About 3 p.m., 2 hours into my shift, I personally get called into the head honcho's office, the store director as they're titled. I think nothing of it and head on upstairs and go inside the office and sit down. The store director hands me a piece of paper and says, "Tell me what caused this." I look at the paper and it's a printed out screenshot of a Google review for our store. 1 star out of 5, and a full paragraph from that lady of 2 nights before complaining that she didn't get her freshly sliced meat from the rude employee, and then described specifically me. I explained exactly what happened 2 nights prior, as clearly as I'm typing it out here. The director is getting heated and begins to cut me off while I'm speaking, asking, "Why would slicers be covered in sanitizer at 8:55? You're scheduled to work until 9 p.m. I said, "Yes, I am." But seeing as I'm constantly being reminded not to get any overtime so I usually start cleaning them around 8:30 p.m. The director gets even more upset and raises her voice.
I don't care. That's not how it works. If you have a customer, you serve them, and you'd better start making sure those shelves are filled before you leave, or you won't be working here anymore. Now get out.
I'm pretty salty at this point. I go back down to the department and my coworker asks what happened, and I told him. He says, "So they want everything done before we leave?" I said, "Yup," and without another word, he knew what we needed to do. 9 p.m. hits as usual, and our shelves are at the usual standard of half full, but seeing as we've been given a new standard, we decided to stay and make sure that we did what I was instructed to do. We spent next several hours past closing time slicing and slicing and slicing until every single tray of meat and cheese was full. We had plastic totes in the big fridge full of cheese that we sliced that were wrapped up in half-pound blocks for ease of sale. So we decided to fill that tub over the brim with every single type of cheese we had available. We cut up around 70 pounds of cheese and wrapped it up in the fridge. We also had a Subway-style sandwich counter where we made sandwiches to go and also pre-made on the shelves for sale. We made double the usual amount of sandwiches and filled the shelves as per requested. Not a single shelf had a single empty spot on it by the time we were done. After every single possible item and shelf was as full as it could be, we finally started to clean and close. It was around 3 a.m. when we finally left. The department opens at 5 a.m. We were exhausted, but our spiteful overtime venture made us feel pretty good. We got about 6 hours of overtime in. They hated anyone getting even 5 to 10 minutes of overtime. We both came in the next day at 1 p.m. as usual, expecting complete retaliation. But nope. Instead, our department manager of the deli kind of saunters over to us and says, "Hey, you should be good to start cleaning up at 8:30 like usual. I think she, the director, got the point you made. Normally, overtime would be asked to be taken care of by clocking out for lunches or coming in later than usual, but they let us keep all 6 hours of that overtime. They never said anything to us about overtime again after that. I accepted a job that paid almost double about 6 months after this incident and never ever went back to retail nightmare." You're replaceable. Okay, bye. I worked for a company for just under 5 years. The company I worked for existed for an additional 10 years prior to me. While I worked at this company, it ballooned to be the #1 provider in the region for its unique service with about 75% of the market. It was a small business of about 15 employees. I loved my jobs, and the skills I learned while working there were quite valuable. I loved my team and the clients we provided services for. My twice-yearly reviews with the owner were always 10 out of 10 with no recommendations for improvement. I was exceptional at my job in every way. I handled company operations, HR and payroll, customer service, marketing, employee management, schedules, employee and client training, and many other things at this company. I was also able to step in and do any of my teammates' jobs if they were out sick or on vacation. The owner of the company was giving out a bonus late summer last year, and mine, while being more than previous years, was notably less than my teammates. I asked owner, "Are the bonuses related to performance? And if so, what could I have done to earn more?" Owner replied, "The bonuses are not performance related. You were just more replaceable than the others." "Oh, okay," I replied, and I proceeded to process each one of the bonuses, then went to lunch. I called my spouse to gain wisdom and advice. I was pretty lit, but didn't want to make a rash decision. My spouse is very intelligent, and while they are not a fortune teller, they have an ability to foresee various responses and all the potential outcomes. They are business-wise and have been on the executive team of a large company for the past 21 years, while also serving on several community boards and business advisory boards. We decided together to continue forward with our scheduled vacation and use the time away to calm our minds, relax, have fun, and to also determine the best course of action for me. We were leaving after working one more day, so I worked like all was normal the rest of the day and the following day, then left on vacation. While away, we discussed several scenarios, the potential outcomes, consulted with a business advisor and a business attorney. With all the advice I received, I determined that upon my return from vacation, I would resign from my role with a 2-week notice. However, in a fit of rage, I was immediately terminated by the owner, which was one of the scenarios we thought would happen, so I was prepared for owner's poor reaction. During the next couple weeks, I created and opened a competing business offering similar services. However, I offered more customizable options with higher quality service and results. I knew our clients wanted these options and had proposed said options several times at old workplace, but was never greenlighted to implement the changes for no reason other than owner didn't come up with the idea, so it was a stupid idea. I also maintained communications with a few people from my old team. My old team did not relay the day-to-day happenings at my previous workplace, and I never asked about the company. However, they would vent to me on occasion. I would listen without comment. I knew service, quality, and the work environment in general suffered since my departure. Morale went down, and clients were less satisfied. I also read the Google and Facebook reviews for old company. Yikes. Additionally, 2 full-time and 1 part-time persons were hired to fill my role, and a portion of my responsibilities, like HR and payroll, were filled by outside companies. I quickly built up my business, and within 3 months was able to hire several of my old teammates. They were able to jump in on day 1 with minimal training as they were the best employees at my old workplace. The quality of previous workplaces' offerings continued to fall, which sent additional business my way and quickly caused incoming work to be non-existent at old workplace. My old workplace went from being the #1 provider of unique service in the region to nothing in a matter of months. My previous employer is now searching for gainful employment. I know this because over the weekend, owner applied for a position at my spouse's company. Side note, I think my spouse's company should bring my previous employer in for an interview, but when they arrive, surprise, I'm the interviewer, and all I say is, how replaceable am I now? My spouse, rightfully so, has said no. Moral of the story, don't tell your employees that they are replaceable because they might create a competing business that is better than yours while taking your best employees and your clients, which will leave you with no business to sell. Owner's whole retirement plan was to sell business and starting all over by searching for employment under someone else. Looks like your company was replaceable. Not me. I have transitioned in my professional life from entry-level to management and ownership. When I was an entry-level employee just out of school, I always thought it was a mistake for ownership to treat valued employees poorly, but figured I was young and the older, more seasoned business professionals knew better, so I must be wrong. As I've aged and progressed in business and in my career, one thing I learned is I was right when I was only a year out of school. Yes, costs must be monitored, but there is a difference between being mindful of costs and being cheap with your employees. Value your employees, pay them what they deserve and more, and productivity, client satisfaction, revenue, and profitability will follow from that treatment. You learned this lesson, benefited yourself, and did over your jerk ex-boss in the process. Nice work. Am I the jerk for refusing to walk my daughter down the aisle? I, male 49, have 2 daughters, Marie, who's 27, and Julie, who's 23. For context, Julie is not my biological daughter since I married my current wife when she was only 2, and since her dad was absent, I adopted her as my own, but I love both my daughters the same. This being said, I'm closer to Julie since she has and still lives with us, and we do almost everything together. Instead, Marie is closer to her mom, mainly because her mom got full custody of her and she has never lived with me. Now to the main issue. Julie got engaged about a year ago and immediately asked me to walk her down the aisle. I of course agreed and have actively helped her with the planning of the wedding, which is scheduled to be October of 2022. A couple of weeks ago, Marie asked me to grab some coffee with her and let me know she's currently pregnant and will soon get married. To be honest, this got me off guard since I didn't even know she had a boyfriend. She apparently will have quite a fast wedding since she doesn't want to show too much, meaning her wedding will be in 3 months. She says it'll be a small ceremony and asked me to walk her down the aisle. I felt weird about it since I don't even know her fiance and it's all so sudden, so I asked her to let me think about it. It seemed like this answer surprised her, but she understood. I then went home and let my wife and daughter know, and Julie asked me to please decline since she wanted to be the first to be walked down the aisle, and since she asked first, thinks that I have a stronger commitment to her. I agreed since this is more of an us thing rather than an afterthought like Marie's wedding. I then sent a message to Marie letting her know of my decision with a brief explanation and even offered options like her mom or stepdad to walk with her. I also reassured her that I'd still be with her there and support her with anything. She almost immediately called me, crying and telling me how much of a horrible father I am, and how I apparently have always played favorite, which hurt me since it's simply not true. I love them both. I tried to explain my reasoning, but she has said it doesn't matter and doesn't care about my excuses. She ended up hanging up, and my ex has been sending me tons of texts berating me and calling me names. Now, word has spread to some family members, and they are calling me a deadbeat and trash. But my wife and daughter agree that my decision is the only fair one and shouldn't be pressured into doing something I don't want. I'm starting to feel guilty, but I'm honestly unsure. Am I the jerk for refusing to walk my daughter down the aisle? You're the jerk. You should be walking them both down the aisle instead of just picking one over the other. Julie wanting to be the first one to be walked down the aisle is frankly a ridiculous request, and if you explain that as your reasoning to your daughter, no wonder she was crying on the phone. What the heck? If Marie had happened to get married first a few years ago, would Julie be bugging OP now and refusing to let him walk her down the aisle because Marie already got to do it? Like, the whole firsties thing makes zero sense. It sounds like Julie resents that Marie is OP's biological daughter and just wants to have one over on her, having their dad walk her down the aisle. And it sounds like OP is like, dope, sounds great, Julie. Yeah, Julie is insecure about Marie being OP's biological kid and wants to ensure that she's OP's only actual kid with respect to their relationship. So no sharing anything with Marie. Everything Julie wants from OP needs to be Julie's alone. And they, Julie and OP's wife, claim they're just respecting what OP wants to do, when they're the ones who told him to make the choice in the first place. I bet it's not the first time something like this has happened. Absolutely, you're the jerk. Yeah, you're the jerk here big time. You're refusing to walk your daughter down the aisle because your other daughter wanted to be first? That's super selfish. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or one of his daughters? Please let us know.
You're wrong for doing her like that, bruh.
Am I the jerk for telling mother-in-law that while I cannot break HIPAA, I can dictate how much she sees her future grandkids? I'm an ER nurse. I also have a terrible relationship with my mother-in-law. She came into the ER on Valentine's Day, and I went into the room and she immediately demanded a new nurse. To be fair, I was about to suggest she get a different nurse because in general we don't work with family, but she was super rude about it and said I was incompetent. The real issue is, mother-in-law was with a date. This man is a family friend. He was actually father-in-law, her very, very recent ex-husband's best friend for 20 plus years. My husband despises this man and would have a strong reaction to knowing that she's dating him. Mother-in-law's dad had a business falling out with him and there were multiple lawsuits. His kids don't like mother-in-law. So to say people would flip their crap if they found out that they were dating is an understatement. I absolutely can't tell anyone due to HIPAA. I can't even mention to my husband that I saw her and it's stressing me out so badly. Mother-in-law reminded me of HIPAA at the hospital and I reassured her that I would never risk my career like that. Mother-in-law laughed and said she knew it was going to drive me crazy and she was loving it. This morning she texted me that she was just reminding me that she knows her legal rights and she will destroy my life if I tell anyone. I wrote back again that I won't tell. I asked if she was ever going to tell her son, and she wrote back, laughing out loud, maybe if we get married. I told her she was a jerk mom, and she said that she hardly ever sees him since he married such a jerk, so it is a non-issue. At that point, I felt like she was goading me, because she must know that it drives me crazy to not be able to tell him. I wrote back that I cannot break HIPAA as she is clearly aware, but I can dictate how much time she spends with future grandkids. So maybe she shouldn't be calling me names, and just wrote she should fess up to her son. Mother-in-law wrote back that she has no intentions of having a relationship with my kids, but then said the fact I said that shows what type of person I am. And since I'm a trash person, she doesn't even want to meet my future kids. I don't know if I went too far with what I said. You need to go to your HR and let them know what's going on. Tell them your mother-in-law came in with a date and is now threatening you with HIPAA, even though you have done nothing and told no one that you have no intentions to. This needs to be on record in case she decides to mess with you more. You could maybe even screenshot and print out where she is threatening you with it. As a nurse, I agree with this 100%. Cover yourself with a paper trail. Don't let her decide that she has a weapon at a future date. And once you have a proper paper trail going, when she keeps harassing you, you will be able to turn it back against her. Blackmail is a felony, and this is blackmail. I don't think this qualifies as blackmail. Telling someone, if you break the law, I'll make sure you pay for it, doesn't strike me as blackmailing someone. However, it could be considered as harassment if she continues sending her messages and reminding her how much she enjoys her suffering. Not the jerk, but is it a violation still if she's texting you about it on a private number outside of the hospital and threatening your career? Does your hospital have a lawyer on staff? Because you may want to talk to them. And is it a violation if your husband happens to read the messages on your privately owned phone and figures it out? It would be pretty amazing if mother-in-law incriminated herself over text, especially if OP just said really bland and non-incriminating stuff back. Married couples are in each other's phones all the time. Okay, I'm not a lawyer, but I do know a bit about HIPAA, and OP should be super careful about what she's texting back to mother-in-law, especially since mother-in-law is clearly out for blood. She probably should not be having any sort of text conversation about anything that happened in the hospital with a patient. Karen waitress threw away my food when I wasn't looking, so I left her no tip. My girlfriend and I recently went out for dinner. It took them a while to seat us as they were short-staffed. We ordered an appetizer to split as well as a meal each. I noticed that they were really trying to rush us along, bringing out our meals at the same time as the appetizer. The server kept grabbing things off the table, asking, "All finished with this?" and beginning to walk away with it in her hand before I stopped her and told her that we weren't finished. After the third time, first the bread, then my half-filled beer, and then the appetizer, I had enough. I understand you have a job to do. Please do not touch anything in front of me until it's cleared and off to the side. Stop interrupting our meal. Please go away, I said very sternly. A friend of mine came in and was seated at a table nearby. I turned around to greet him and engaged in chit-chat for about 2 minutes. When I turned around, my meal, which I had barely touched, was gone. My girlfriend hadn't even noticed it gone missing. I called the waitress over, who handed me the check and asked, "Will there be anything else?" I told her my meal had disappeared. She blankly replied, "Oh, I thought you were done." I said, "No, I'm still eating. Go get my dinner and bring it back here." She replied, It got thrown out. Because you looked like you were done, so yeah." I told her to go get me her manager. She responded that he didn't have time to see me. I told her that he needed to make time because I was about to make a scene in 4 seconds. She left and a minute later came back and said that he was too busy. I told her to reprint the check without my meal on it. She refused, saying I had ordered it, I had to pay for it, and walked away. I let my girlfriend finish her meal, took the check, put a line through the cost of my meal, pulled cash out of my wallet to cover the appetizer, drinks, and my girlfriend's meal, wrote, "No tip. Your server was rude, incompetent, and threw out my dinner," and handed it to the cashier as one bundle as I walked out. My girlfriend thinks I went a bit overboard and that I should have at least tipped for the other employees involved. My mother, a retired waitress, is furious that I took it upon myself to alter a check and leave without paying for food I ordered. She thinks it was an honest mistake and I need to be more understanding. I'm usually on the side of the servers, but this seems a bit much. Who takes someone's food without even asking if they want to box it up, especially if there was a lot left over? Not the jerk. Not the jerk. Agree that I am almost always on the side of the server, 99.9% of the time. I'm a firm believer that we all have bad days at work and make mistakes, and we all still get paid for those days, and servers should too. But not in this case. I also don't understand why the server would take the food without asking to box it up, or clearly asking if you're done. But even if this was the case, once the server realized she had thrown away the food that the person still planned on eating, a replacement should have been offered. And yes, she might have gotten in trouble for that, but that's a consequence of her own mistakes. Not the jerk. What's the manager there for then? Sounds like you made it very clear not to remove plates. Waitstaff doing that afterwards is deliberate. Handing you the bill and saying, "Will there be anything else?" is kind of hostile too. Sounds like she had an issue with you from the get-go. Weird way to treat a customer. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the waitress? Please let us know.
I'd be calling corporate if I were you. I've got a lot of experience doing that sort of thing.
Am I the jerk for telling my boyfriend that if he wants me to dress a certain way, he needs to pay for my clothes and hair and nails and time? I'm a woman in a career field which really doesn't care about appearances. My boyfriend is in a job where looks matter more, investment banking. He wears suits and has to present himself as more wealthy to look good at work. My boyfriend wanted me to come to some work events, dinners, or happy hours. But he said that it was something we'd need to dress up for. I offered to wear some nice dresses I have, and he said that it was more than that. His coworkers' wives and girlfriends wore designer and had professionally done hair and nails, and that it really was just what was needed to succeed in his workplace, so he considered it a professional expense. I said that made sense for himself, but I'm not responsible for his professional expenses. He agreed to pay for the clothes and salon appointments, and I also asked him to compensate me for my time getting presentable for those events. Additionally, if he wanted me to act a certain way during these events, which was different than my usual behavior at a social event, it should be treated like work. I'd expect to be paid for my time. He thought that was unfair, saying that it was weird to charge my boyfriend to attend an event with him. I said that if I'm not attending as myself, but instead presenting an image for business development purposes, that's not socializing, that's labor. He agreed to that in the end, and we came up with a list of things I'd need to attend an event with him. Designer dress, designer heels, jewelry, hair done, nails done, makeup done, handbag. He picked out the dress, heels, and bag, and he asked me to find salons to have my hair, nails, and makeup done. When I told him how much the cosmetics appointments and the time I spent on them cost, he was upset it was $700. And adding that to the clothes he bought and the time we'd be at the event, it was coming close to almost $2,000. We went and I played the part. It was uneventful. Nobody paid me much attention. Felt like a bit of a waste, but whatevs. But afterwards, when I mentioned that I wanted to borrow his card to make an appointment to get the nails removed, since I needed them filed down by a professional before work, he got frustrated with me, saying that I was milking him for money and I was only with him for money. I told him that I make the same as he does. He got upset and said that most girls know how to dress themselves and do their own makeup nice, and I got so frustrated I said sarcastically, "Go date most girls then. I'm sure most girls would love being treated like a human dress-up doll." He got really mad about that, and I feel frustrated too. Like he expects me to do crap unpaid for his work. Like I would never ask him to do crap for my job, let alone do my job unpaid. Am I the jerk for wanting to be paid if my labor was going towards my boyfriend's career? Edit, because there are a lot of questions about why I thought it was justified to ask for compensation for my time. 1. The hair and makeup and nails and tailoring appointments took about 10 hours. I had to take a full day off work, and since I am a consultant who bills hourly, I was losing a day's wages to perform tasks my boyfriend wanted to benefit his career. If I ever asked my boyfriend to lose wages at his job to perform tasks for my job, I'd think it would be fair to pay him for his work too. 2. I'm always happy to attend social events and be polite, friendly, and talk to people and get to know them, for free. But this wasn't what he was asking of me. He wanted me to act, to not speak of my actual hobbies or career, and to give the impression that I am a stay-at-home partner, to claim to ski. I have no idea how to ski. To only order classy drinks and none of the drinks I actually drink. That doesn't strike me as going to an event as a partner. That strikes me as going to an event as an actress or a performer, which is a whole job. Edit 2. I also find it very strange how feminine labor is undervalued. He said that he needed me to do something for him to support his career because his bosses expected of me. If this was any other kind of work, it would be absurd to do it unpaid. Like if he said, "Hey, my boss needs a truck loaded," and everyone knows that's what the girlfriends do. "Can you come by and load the truck? Also, you'll need to bring your own forklift." Absurd. If he asked me, "Hey, my boss heard you're an engineering consultant and wants you to evaluate this software architecture, and he expects it for free because that's what girlfriends are for," that's absurd. I'd be sending my rates. So why is it acceptable to say, "Hey, my workplace expects me to bring a woman to play a very specific role, and you will need to do 10 hours of preparation tasks for free for the benefit of my career, and you should cover the cost of parts and labor"? I wish that was considered equally absurd, but it's almost like women's work in hospitality is an undervalued form of labor. Info. What keeps you together? I just read 2 people who are completely incompatible. Exactly. Not the jerk. He needs to find himself a living doll or robot or something because he clearly needs one in order to advance at work. Or just someone who wants to live like that. I'm sure there are plenty of people who would. He just hasn't chosen to be with a woman who does enjoy those things. Yeah, I love dressing up and getting my hair and nails done. I work in an office that allows jeans, and yet I wear almost exclusively dresses. Dating a guy like this would be wonderful for me, and I'd have a ton of fun. even if the events themselves were boring, just because I got to dress up. But not everyone is like that. Okay, but it's not about the dressing up, which I also enjoy and don't get the opportunity to do a lot, really. It's about the asking her to lie about her hobbies, keep her demeanor more docile, and pretend she doesn't work. I'd have a hard time with that aspect. OP. He's not like this outside of work. He honestly puts on a whole different personality when he has to go to work, which up until now I really wasn't exposed to because we kept our professional lives separate. Thing is, he seems happy to have a work-sona that is entirely different than his real personality. I'm not. My coworkers get the same me as my friends, minus a bit of the excessive language and gossip. My coworkers know I'm basically a teenage dirtbag in a 28-year-old woman's body, and I still get respect because I'm kind and competent. And I like working in an environment where I can show up with pink hair that I dyed in the bathroom the night before, and all people will say is, "Cool hair. I love how you always have something new and unique." I wasn't aware of how restrictive his company's workplace culture was and how he has a whole different persona he has to put on and take off every day. Not the jerk. You're my hero for putting an appropriately high value on your time. Yeah, I'm with her 100%. In addition, I find it kind of messed up that the boyfriend got all upset and said she's using him for money. Dude, she gave you the option of herself, dressed up in a nice outfit she already owns. He's the one who insisted on all the expensive extra crap. This was your idea, homie. Not the jerk, and I like your style, OP. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know.
Sometimes our careers and lives make us incompatible with others. I know I wouldn't want to have to pretend to be someone I'm not, but I also sure as heck wouldn't be paying Reddit boy to go to a party with me.
Who would even invite you to a party, Karen? You know you don't have any friends.
Stop it, Reddit boy! Just stop it!
I gave away my son's new bike after the prank he pulled on a girl he was friends with. So recently I found out my son Jacob, who's 15, pulled an incredibly cruel prank on one of the girls I'll call Ashley that's in his friend group. I know this girl. She's been to our house and even attended Jacob's birthday party a month ago. She seemed incredibly sweet, if not a bit shy. So when my oldest son, Mark, who's 17, came to me and told me that Jacob had asked Ashley out on a date as a prank, I was stunned. I, of course, asked how he could know this, hoping as any mother would that it wasn't true. But Mark showed me the family tablet we all use, but mostly my sons do, and it seems Jacob forgot to log out of his chatting app, Discord. I read the long series of messages between Jacob and his friends as they mocked Ashley all through this heartless prank. I was speechless, and that's not even getting into how he was talking, like he was some gangsta, and not even a 15-year-old living in a gated community. At first, I couldn't figure out what to do or how to proceed. I'll admit that I never once imagined either of my boys would be the type of person to do something like this, but there was no way in heck I was letting this go. So after a day of thought, I decided what was going to happen. First things first, he was grounded. For how long, I'm not sure. Secondly, I'd gotten Jacob a bike for his birthday, but it hadn't arrived until the day previous, and I'd planned to give it to him when my parents came to visit since they'd been unable to make his party. But instead of that, I showed him I knew about the prank, and then told him he was grounded. Then I made him carry the new bike out of my bedroom closet and to the car before driving it to Ashley's house, him crying the whole way. I'd called her parents earlier and explained everything, and so once we got there, I had him cart it to their front porch and ring the doorbell. Then in front of me, Ashley, her parents, and God, I had him give a sincere apology and gift her the bike. Even I apologized to her, saying I didn't raise my boys this way and what he did was unforgivable. I also called the parents of the other boys who were a part of this little stunt, and they all seemed rightfully horrified by their son's involvement. I felt I'd handled this all as best I could, and my friends agreed. Though once my parents found out that I'd made Jacob give his birthday gift away, they said that I did go too far. I still feel like what I did was right, but having my parents more or less dogpile on me like this actually made me wonder if how I handled it was too extreme. Am I the jerk here? Not the jerk. You did the right thing. If there hadn't been any consequences that hit where it hurt, he may not have learned how unacceptable that behavior is. That cruelty is sadly common in kids around that age, but this is the absolute right step towards him becoming a good man. OP. I'm sad to say I know how cruel boys can be. Not personally, but back when I was in high school, I witnessed something similar to this happen to the weird girl, and it ended very poorly for her. As horrible as it is, I would tell that story to him. He needs to know that this is more than silly fun and can scar someone for life or worse. Not the jerk, you did good. Yes, a lot of teenagers are just plain dumb sometimes. I bet he didn't even think how this would feel if it were done to him. As a female that had this prank pulled on them in high school, I want to say thank you for standing up and for doing what's right. When it was done to me, it took a huge toll on me, and I didn't trust guys for a long time when I was asked out of fear that it was another prank. I hate to say this, but this most likely wasn't a one-off situation, and you might want to look into how your son treats other kids in school as well. I don't want to say he's bullying on other kids, but if he has no issue pulling something like this with his friends, what else is he doing? Not the jerk. I would have done the same thing. What he did wasn't okay. That can damage someone's self-confidence. He can handle losing a gift. He should feel awful for what he's done. Your parents are just grandparents thinking. They aren't seeing the big picture. If he keeps going down that path, he will end up with a bad group of kids. Punish him however you want. Boys need to be raised to respect women and not to tear them down. Not the jerk. I still remember 10 plus years later when I was in middle school and one kid told me his friend loved me, and seeing how angry his friend got afterwards because liking me was such a gross thing. You 100% did the right thing. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her son? Please let us know.
Trust me, OP. If your son uses Discord, this probably isn't even scratching the surface of the things he's done.
Am I the jerk for not doing anything after discovering that my wife deleted my daughter's novel? I've been married to my wife, Hannah, who's 36, for 2 years. She and my daughter Morgan, who's 16, don't have a daughter-mother relationship. To be completely transparent here, they both fight often and just don't get along. Morgan used to spend most of her time at her mom's, but now is staying with us for school. I remember Hannah telling me about a novel Morgan has been writing on her laptop. She admitted to sneaking and looking at it without Morgan's knowledge, but she praised her writing style and storytelling, so I thought that was a positive thing. Yesterday, I got back home and found Morgan and her mom yelling at Hannah. I asked what was happening, and Morgan told me that Hannah deleted her novel. Hannah said that Morgan created a character in the novel using her description and name and making her the villain. Not only that, but she wrote bad words about her. Morgan argued that it was just a character and Hannah had no business snooping on her laptop to begin with. Hannah broke down crying after my ex-wife threatened her. I just watched the three of them fight and did nothing, nor said a single word. I stepped out for a minute to get fresh air, and moments later, Hannah unloaded on me about how I should have defended her in the argument instead of acting so cowardly. Morgan and her mom also said that I should have done something when Hannah decided to snoop and then delete Morgan's months of work. It just became too much with the three of them berating me and yelling in my face. Morgan went home with her mom and she was crying and refused to speak to me, and Hannah checked into a hotel, also refusing to speak to me. The texts from both sides kept coming in, both telling me I should have done something and should have taken their side in the argument. I just had to stay out of this one. I was on my feet the entire work morning. Both mental and physical health are down the drain, and I'm tired of them fighting all the time, then blaming me for my actions or lack of. Both are expecting me to get involved and do something to fix this, but I haven't done anything yet. Am I the jerk for not getting involved? You're the jerk. Hannah should pay for the recovery services to get the novel back. This will run $1,500 to $3,000 and won't guarantee that it is successful. There is no question who the jerk is here, and it's both you and Hannah. The laptop should be powered off and not used until it is sent in for recovery to give it the best chance of succeeding. Also, OP, you should have shut Hannah down the moment she admitted to snooping through Morgan's things. You should have told her to stop and told Morgan to add or change her password. You and Hannah are huge jerks. I see the next novel having two villains, one nasty snooping one and one cowardly one. He knew that his wife was snooping through his daughter's belongings, yet he did nothing. He knew his wife and daughter have hated each other for years, yet he talks about them fighting constantly as though it's natural. He knows he is both a father and a husband, yet he's been sitting on the side, stuck in neutral for some time. OP, no matter your mental state, you don't get to check out from being a parent. Your daughter didn't get a choice in who her parents would be, but it was your choice to bring her into this world. You're her father, her defender and protector. Yes, she's a young woman now, but inside there's still a child that wants her father to make her feel safe and loved. When you married Hannah, it became your responsibility to watch over her relationship with your daughter and to make sure your daughter was never mistreated. When your wife said she went through your daughter's laptop, that was your window to shut down a future blowout. You did nothing, and in choosing to do that, you failed your daughter. That was your moment to be her protector, but you chose to lay down your sword and shield, leaving her vulnerable to the wolf in sheep's clothing. Your refusal to be a better husband and father helped create this massively dysfunctional situation, and you're still sitting on the sidelines. Do you really think there won't be even more consequences this time? Your job is to step up and try to find a path through this. Time to get out of neutral, get into gear, and get moving now. Take away my company car? I'll just fly everywhere. First, this isn't the company I work for, but it's a company that services the same customers, and I interact quite often with their sales team. For a little backstory, this job is a sales job where you represent a manufacturer and travel around a territory calling on customers that sell your products. The territory is generally at least 2 states and averages 30,000 miles on the road per year, if not more. The company in question was recently acquired by a new ownership group that has a reputation for buying stagnant businesses, trimming down every possible expense they think is excessive and selling it once it looks profitable, even though the company is barely functioning because of all the cuts. After the acquisition, the new ownership group decided that the sales reps' company cars were one of these excessive expenses. They were told to buy their own cars and they'd be given a monthly allowance to pay for the vehicle. There's several problems. They drove at least 30,000 miles a year, so no matter what kind of car they bought, the car would depreciate in value very quickly and they would likely need to trade it in a few years before it was paid off. Also, if they wanted to use exactly what their allowance would allow for a car, they'd likely be buying a 10 to 15-year-old car, and it still wouldn't cover fuel and insurance. The sales reps were used to getting a new car every 2 to 3 years. It's important in this line of work to have a presentable car because it's often used to take our customers around the market. For example, my company has a very strict policy about keeping the vehicles clean and will pay to repair any cracks in the windshield or dents in the car immediately because we're a reflection of the company when meeting with our customers. It's just all around a situation where they're getting done over and would be spending their own money on something their old company used to cover, and it's essential to their job. Here's where the malicious compliance comes in. This new company didn't have a policy on flights. There was no rule on how far the destination needed to be before they were allowed to book a flight. Also, they were allowed to rent a car if they flew to a destination. Finally, their company card approval system didn't have very good checks and balances because of the acquisition. Basically, all expenses were sent to an understaffed department. Some were laid off during the acquisition, so they'd approve all expenses as long as a receipt was provided. So now the sales reps are buying ridiculously expensive, super regional flights and just renting a car at the airport. One of the reps I sometimes bump into had just flown from Kansas City, Missouri to Wichita, Kansas, which is 2.5 to 3 hours away on the interstate. He then rented a car and drove back to Kansas City to make sales calls for 2 weeks. He ended up back in Wichita, making sales calls the whole way, and flew back to Kansas City to start the weekend. He'd been doing this every week for months, so was the rest of their sales force. He told me that his average daily travel expense was $50 more than the monthly allowance they gave him to buy a car. He told me that his average daily travel expense was $50 more than the monthly allowance they gave them to buy a car. Apparently, the new company just caught on towards the end of the year, and their year-end travel expenses for them are massive. Since the discovery, there's been multiple meetings, virtual town halls, and a ton of emails with new policies and procedures for taking flights and submitting expenses. The biggest win for them, though, is that at the beginning of this year, they all got company cars again. Sure, I can wait. I've been working as a delivery driver for a small parts company in the RV industry. Think courier van small parts. I have a lot of stops in a day, 20 to 30, which happens when you live in the RV capital of the world. So one day I'm headed to one of my favorite plants with a hot order of screws, something they need badly. Let's call it Plant 107. I like it because the receiver there is a super chill guy that takes care of me and makes sure I'm not waiting in line forever like other places. This particular day, he has been given orders by his boss, who plays the part of the antagonist in this story. So I pull up to the plant and see across the way that he is busy and will be a while, so I do what I normally do and just wait it out. Around 15 to 20 minutes go by and he's still working and I'm still sitting. In times past when this has happened, I can just hand load everything onto a cart and walk into the office for someone to sign paperwork and I'll take the product to the correct location. This is where I encountered the jerk, the boss. The exchange went as follows. Me. How's it going? Was hoping someone could sign for these so I can drop them for you. I know it's a hot order. Boss. Who are you with? Me. Insert company name here. Boss dismissively. Why are you in such a hurry? Me. Not in a hurry, but I know you need these immediately, and the receiver is busy. I've been out there for about 15 minutes or so. Boss. More sternly. Do you need me to go out and buy you a new watch? You've only been here 5 minutes, and I know because I pulled in around you. Me. Yes, you pulled around me about 10 minutes after I got here. Boss, even more sternly. Well, I'm the one in charge here, and I told the receiver to work on something else, so you're going to have to wait. Your package is not a top priority for us, so go back to your truck. Me, choking back the urge to go off on this lady. Sure, I can wait. So I go back out to the truck and pull forward ever so slightly so my side door is even with her window. Open it up and sit there staring at her. Another 20 minutes go by, and my boss calls asking why this place hasn't received their screws yet. Tell him what happened, and he says, "Stay there, I'll take care of it." Another 10 minutes go by, and suddenly she comes bursting out of the office screaming for the receiver on the radio, saying he shouldn't have left me waiting so long and that she is going to write him up for what happened. And then, in a what on earth move, she just gets in her car and leaves. I look at the receiver and make sure he knows that's BS, and I will vouch for him. We make fun of her for a minute and then split ways, in a transaction that should have taken 2 to 3 minutes tops. Several days go by, and I find out an owner of the company is my boss's golf buddy, and he called him directly. Well, crap rolls downhill, and she got in huge trouble. They demoted her, cut her pay, and suspended her for 2 weeks. I still deliver there often. Every time she sees me, I give her a big smile and a wave, and all she does is drop her head. Sure, I can wait. The camera was stolen? Okay, I'll file a police report. I do marketing for a general contractor in the US. Part of my job requires me to organize the installation of cameras on the job site, mainly for marketing purposes like time lapses and stuff like that. My boss lives near the site that I was setting up the cameras for and offered to drop off the camera on his way into work the next day. The next day, he texts me to confirm where he dropped it off and also notified the site superintendent, boss of the site. The super would take care of the actual installation, which involved drilling it into a post and plugging it in. Pretty simple stuff. Also important to the story, this super was retired a year ago and came back to work for us for unknown reasons, so you could say he is a little checked out of working at this point in his life. Fast forward to the day after my boss dropped it off. I called the super to confirm that he had installed it. He tells me that he never saw the camera on the site, and I told him to check where my boss said he dropped it off, which was under a trailer and covered by an extra sign. He still claims it is nowhere to be found, sent a picture of where my boss left it, and then suggests that it may have been stolen. I go to my boss and explain the situation, and we both agree that something doesn't seem quite right. We call him up to see what he says, and he's still sticking to his story that it was stolen, but sounds a little hesitant over the phone. My boss dropped it off around 7:30 a.m., and the super was on the job site around 8 a.m. Not exactly prime hours for theft, and a very small window of when the site was unsupervised. Standard procedure for when something is stolen from the job site is to file a police report and all that jazz. I also called the camera provider to see if there was any way to GPS track the camera. Unfortunately, there was not, but the super doesn't need to know that. Me and my boss agree to craft up some beautiful BS in an email to see if anything happens. We said that we will follow standard procedure and file a police report for the camera. I also mentioned that I will be calling the camera provider to have them track the camera so we can get it back. The next morning, he calls me back and says that he found the camera in the woods on the edge of the job site and blamed one of the subcontractors for moving it. He probably lost it when he read the words GPS tracking and covered his tracks. I think he was either trying to sell the camera or just really didn't want to install it. Since then, the camera has been installed after bugging the same super for about a month. Nothing ever came of the suspected theft due to lack of evidence, and the super still works here. Classmate is mad I'm forcing her to eat ethnic food. Go eat a loaf of bread. This happened about a year ago now when I was in high school. My calculus class was very chill. About 20 kids who were all friendly with each other, a laid-back but enthusiastic teacher, and a light enough workload that we could afford to goof off in class but still learn and do well. At some point in the year, I got really into cooking. It's my stress reliever. My family couldn't possibly eat the amount of food I made, so I started bringing it into school and hosting Friday parties in my calc class, with my teacher's approval, of course. Now, I'm Vietnamese and live in a predominantly white town. This is only important because it's meant that most kids from my town only ate American or European foods and weren't used to eating other ethnic foods. Last year, around Lunar New Year, I wanted to bring in some Vietnamese foods to celebrate. It's a very important time of year for my family. I ended up making a bunch of bánh de lon, a steamed layer cake, and a traditional Vietnamese dessert. Some of my friends from class found out I was going to bring in a traditional dish and brought in their own traditional dishes from their own cultures, whether they celebrated Lunar New Year or not. We had different Indian, Korean, Filipino, and Spanish desserts. It was great, and I was really excited that my friends wanted to celebrate with me. Apparently, there was an issue for one girl in my class. I would say bánh de lon is an acquired taste, so when not a lot of people ate it, I wasn't offended. I knew not everybody would like it. There was a lot of other food anyways. During our lunch period, one of my friends, who wasn't in our class but knew I brought food in, overheard a girl from my class complaining about the food while on the lunch line. Apparently, she was saying really negative things about how I forced everyone to eat weird Chinese foods. Later that day, I texted her just saying I heard she didn't like the food and wanted to know why. I don't really care when people don't like the food. I make it for myself and bring it in when I have extra anyways. But her calling it weird Chinese food when she knows I'm Vietnamese didn't sit right with me. Well, she texted back that it was rude of me to bring in weird ethnic foods that nobody could have liked except for me, and said I should have known better since most of the class was white. I told her that I bring in food to share because I feel like it and that I don't have an obligation to cater to her tastes. If she has an issue with it, she literally does not have to eat it, and other people can bring in food too. So if she wanted to, she could bring in something more to her tastes. After that, she just told me that I shouldn't bring in ethnic and foreign foods and stick with American foods because we're in America. Excuse me? Like, how much you want to bet if I brought in jambalaya, which originated in Louisiana, she would call it a weird foreign food? Fine. She only wants to eat American foods, then she can eat American foods. The next week, I brought in a bunch of oliebollen, a Dutch donut, and started passing them out at the beginning of class. When I got to her desk, I pulled out a loaf of Wonder Bread and plopped it on her desk, saying, "Sorry, but these are Dutch, too ethnic. Here you go, all American cuisine." Later, she texted asking what the heck my problem was, so I told her that almost every single food I brought in this year was ethnic, and that it ticked me off that she had only had an issue when it wasn't European. She's entitled to not liking Asian foods, but if you're going to complain about it being ethnic, then you better have that same attitude when the ethnic food is white. And especially, don't call another person's culture weird. She didn't complain about the food again. My Karen girlfriend found out my parents are rich. Now she's mad I won't pay her medical and college debt. My family is low-key wealthy, but my parents have made sure that we are never flashy about it. We live in the same place we've lived for about 15 years, don't have flashy clothes and cars, and generally make sure we're spending money on experiences rather than objects. Cue my younger sister, who's totally spoiled and for some reason feels extremely entitled to her share of the wealth. She just turned 21, and I think part of it is her finally getting information about her trust and in general how we stand. I'm 25 and I'm the older one, so I've sort of known about all of this for a while now. Anyway, long story short, my sister ended up going car shopping with my girlfriend for expensive new cars, Porsches. My dad has not approved anything, so I don't know what she's going to do, but apparently she flashed my dad's credit card and talked up the salesman about how much money she has to spend. My girlfriend was shocked that me driving a simple, unassuming 10-year-old Lexus will have a sister throwing $100,000 at a car. We had a huge discussion and ended up fighting about it. She was shocked at roughly how much money we had and told me I was a tad selfish for not mentioning it when she had college and medical debt. Honestly, we've only been dating for 2 years, and I was thinking after about a year I would propose if things are going well and start this discussion. It's all happened a little too soon. I'm really mad at my sister and kind of laid it out on her. Told her how immature and selfish she was and how she is undoing everything our parents have worked hard for to install values in us. She told me I had to grow up and I'm a wet blanket. Am I the jerk here? Not the jerk. The biggest jerk here is your girlfriend for for assuming that because you come from a wealthy family, you're obligated to pay off her debt. Is this really the kind of person that you want to have a relationship with? OP. Yeah, that kind of caught me off guard. Your parents' money has nothing and will never have anything to do with her college and medical debt. That was a strange thing for her to say. I don't get why people would be mad at not being told about wealth. Are they equally as mad about not being told of a family debt? I'm blown away that she thinks she's entitled to it. I was thinking the same. It's telling that the fact that her knowing that you have access to money equals her debt being paid. The only reason you should disclose an aspect of your finances with anyone is if they are contributing to them, for business purposes, or because you are combining household finances. Why would she need to know how much money you have? I get why people would be upset after learning that their significant other had been hiding something from them for 2 years. That would make me wonder, what else are they hiding from me? But the key here is that isn't what the girlfriend wondered. Her mind went straight to, why hasn't this benefited me? And that's the issue, and it makes her a massive jerk. Sorry, she wants you to pay off her debt? Just because your family is wealthy? The audacity and entitlement she has, not the jerk OP. Yours and your family's finances are really none of her business unless y'all get married. OP. Yeah, but I guess if my parents are okay, they are not. With my sister spending $100,000 on a car, her $20,000 medical debt seems quite small. But your girlfriend is not your parents' kid or their responsibility. Yeah, it sucks for your girlfriend and your sisters sound spoiled, but your girlfriend isn't their family, and they're under no obligation to take care of her. I would never throw a fit over my wealthy boyfriend not paying my debt, especially if it's only been 2 years and y'all aren't even engaged. And like you said, your parents aren't okay with your sister buying that expensive car. Why would they be okay dropping thousands on someone who's not their priority? Honestly, I can kind of relate to the girlfriend here. She's still the jerk, and I hope she will realize that her reaction was wrong. But I also was a bit blindsided when I found out how much money my boyfriend has. Mind you, nowhere near what OP has, just decent savings. If you're worrying about every dime you spend, grew up with money problems, and so many of your problems could be fixed with money, it can make you upset to see someone else who doesn't have to worry about any of that stuff. Red flag that she mentions her medical debt. OP. It's not much, about $20,000 that she's paying off. $20,000 is that much to most people. OP, which is sort of her point. $20,000 is life-changing money to most people. You will do as you want with this relationship, but I think what we're seeing here is she wasn't upset that you didn't trust her enough to tell her in the past 2 years you've been together, but rather that hearing immediately went to you paying for her debt. The first reaction would be understandable. After 2 years, suddenly finding out from a third party that you're wealthy would be a lot to take in. However, her mind seemed to immediately go to, why aren't you paying my way? This is not the reaction you should want. No, it's a problem. It's a problem that your girlfriend of not long enough heard that you had money, and her first thought was how selfish you are because you aren't taking care of her debt and bills. That is exactly why you don't tell people you have money. Your sister is going to get really done over by the wrong person one day, and she's going to learn to stop bragging to everyone about the money she has. Not the jerk. You aren't married and pooling assets together. She had no reason to know. That's your business that you choose to share with people for obvious reasons. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know.
You know, if I ever become rich, I don't think I'm gonna tell anyone about it.
Am I the jerk for extending my vacation with my family and missing my girlfriend's surgery? I think she's being dramatic. I, 35 male, have been with Stacy, 33 female, for 8 years. Neither of us want marriage, but we are committed long-term to our relationship. Stacy gets tonsillitis 3 to 4 times per year and has swollen turbinates, which means she is in agony every quarter and has trouble breathing through her nose. She is having a tonsillectomy and turbinate reduction surgery at the same time. Both are done through GA, and she'll be there for 24 to 36 hours. We get to pick the surgery date to fit around my work schedule. I had a big project coming up, and it was due to finish a few days before her surgery. I organized to take the week off work to keep her company, help prep food, etc. I thought it was the least I could do since she claimed to need someone there. We recently moved to a new state, so neither of us have family or friends in town. Project fell through, so I booked a flight to surprise my family and would be there for 4.5 weeks. Return flight would have me there the day after surgery. Since the trip was a surprise for my family, nobody took time off work and I've barely seen them. Sister managed to get time off during week 5, so I extended my trip to stay. Stacy was upset and asked me to come home when originally planned. I had my tonsils out when I was 8 and I was at school a week later. I don't think she'll need someone there because it's as simple as taking painkillers and reheating soup. However, she says that her doctor said she'd need someone with her for at least the first 3 days, and because I knew about the date already, that somehow I'm being insensitive. She said that I should have warned my family to make sure they took time off, but that wouldn't have been a surprise. My sister says she's being selfish because she's coming between me and my family time, and I'm on the same side. I googled anecdotes of tonsillectomy recovery, but I know people often exaggerate online for attention. Now her mother has called me and, nicely I'll admit, asked me to come back to look after Stacy since she'll have no one else. Am I the jerk? ETA. Our friends are also divided on this issue. ETA. Full disclosure, it was my brother I was referring to. I changed it to sister to make it a bit anonymous, but I ended up telling my girlfriend I posted here, so it doesn't matter so much anymore. You're the jerk. Let me count the ways. 1. Surprising your family was more important than actually spending time and making plans with them. 2. Specifically telling your significant other you would be back in time and changing last minute to ensure she will be alone and have no time to see if anyone else could come help her. 3. Making a commitment to help her and then blaming her for coming between you and your family. 4. Thinking kids healing from surgery is the same as an adult. Spoiler alert, it isn't. It's much harder for adults, and I guarantee you weren't taking care of yourself at the age of 8 like you think she should. 5. Her doctor is specifically saying that she needs somebody to help her for the first 3 days, and you think she's being dramatic. You suck. Be better. He also decided to surprise them for 4.5 weeks, which I guess means he hangs out alone at their house eating snacks while they are at work. No thanks. Hope the poor girl reconsiders living with someone like this. He has no respect for her, like simple, take some painkiller and reheated soup. What? She doesn't deserve this treatment, and sister is supporting him, telling him that his girlfriend is paranoid? You're the jerk. She deserves happiness. Next post. Am I the jerk for leaving my pregnant girlfriend in the hospital? My sister told me it was okay. Doctors would take care of the baby. You're the jerk. That was the part that got me too. Painkillers and reheated soup? What's wrong with this dude? You're the jerk massively. You didn't plan your trip or tell your family, which is why it needs to be extended in the first place. You prioritized a trip over your partner in great pain. You flipped out on your original plan without consulting her, even though she still needs surgery. You dismissed and minimized her pain. Tonsillectomy and turbinate reduction is a major surgery for an adult. You consider your opinion on her surgery superior to hers, or even her doctor's. You want to abandon your recovering and in-pain girlfriend when she needs you the most. You chose not to be back on time, not even early, for her when she has to schedule a major part of her life around you. You tried to find something about the surgery online, but only to fit your selfish narrative, hence the people exaggerate for attention part. Wow, that's a lot. You're a jerk, and so is everyone who's supporting you. Why, after you planned to take care of Stacy, did you think that abandoning her was a good idea? Do you consider your support a favor to her? Because if yes, I hope she dumps you. You sound like a terrible, inconsiderate partner who doesn't respect Stacy, her pain, or her plans. Well, who do you agree with? OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know. 1,400 packages of cookies. I broke a rewards program. The year was 2000 in Canada. One of the better grocery store chains, Loblaws, had introduced their new President's Choice PC Points Rewards program. This was tied into their PC Financial MasterCard. There was a month-long promotion where you could get bonus points for purchasing select items. One of the items was their signature President's Choice Decadent Chocolate Chip Cookies. These are amazing cookies that are still around today. The offer was, for every bag of cookies purchased for the regular price of $1.99, you got 1,000 PC points when you used your PC Financial MasterCard. That 1,000 PC points was worth $1 for a later redemption. Buying a package of great cookies for half price after reward value would not make for a good malicious compliance story, now would it? I figured something out and started some major malicious compliance with their offer. I started by going from store to store and buying every bag of cookies I could find. I even asked if they had cases in the back. From one store, I was able to get 8 cases. I ended up getting 1,400 packages of cookies over a 3-week period before the program broke. Having 1,400 packages of cookies created a problem. What was I going to do with all those cookies I bought for $1.99? At the time, I was a field sales rep for a company with 4 factories in the province. I ended up selling most of the cookies for $1 a package to the employees. They thought it was a great deal and could not get enough. On to the points. Every couple of days, the bonus points would show up in my PC Points account. I realized I could take my PC Points and convert them online from PC Points to Petro Points, Petro Canada Gas Station Rewards Program. Once I had 100,000 PC Points, I would convert to 100,000 Petro Points. I would then go online into my Petro Points account and convert those points to Sears Club points. Sears was a department store that is now gone. Eventually, I would redeem the Sears Club points for vouchers that could be used for in-store purchases at Sears. The break. After converting 1,400,000 PC Financial points to Petro points over a couple of weeks, Petro Canada caught on and immediately stopped all conversions to Sears for everyone. No more points could be converted. It was even marked as not available on their website. I called Petro Points when I found out, and after a little discussion regarding the sudden end of the conversions, was allowed one final conversion. The math. One package of cookies cost $1.99. I sold the packages of cookies for $1, earned $1 in PC points. Exchanged that $1 in PC points to $1 in Petro points. Exchanged the $1 in Petro points to $5 in Sears Club points. It was a fun 3 weeks while it lasted. I told my sister I'm not surprised she doesn't have any friends. So I recently moved to my home country for college and recently found out my 10-year-old sister did something that I'm pretty upset about. So my family had a party for me before I left, and near the end, I noticed that my Nintendo Switch and its games were gone. I found it in my sister's room and packed it and went to sleep to get ready to go to the airport. The flight and everything else went fine, and while I was unpacking my stuff, I noticed I couldn't find my Nintendo Switch or any of its games. I was really confused as I distinctly remembered putting it in my suitcase. I called my mom and she explained that my sister had taken the games and my Switch in the middle of the night and hid it so that she could have it. My mom didn't know until it was too late and just grounded my sister from candy for a week. I am fuming. The Switch was given to me by a friend and all the games were either gifts or I paid for them. And now my mom thinks it's completely okay to let my sister take something that's mine. When I told her this, she said I was being melodramatic and territorial and to let my sister have it. The next week, my sister called me and was being a jerk about the whole thing, saying stuff like, "How does it feel to know you have to ask me to play games now?" I told her that she is an entitled brat and told her, "I'm not surprised you still don't have a friend." My sister was shocked and hung up the phone. She's been having trouble making friends for a while now and told me that I'm the jerk. I'll admit I went too far, but I don't disagree with calling her out on doing that. My sister has never done anything like this, and my siblings and parents are telling me that I'm the jerk now and telling me to apologize and let her keep it. I'm conflicted and need to know if I'm in the wrong because I feel bad and need to know if I'm the entitled brat. So, am I the jerk? Edit. My entire family isn't letting me talk to her until I say that it belongs to her. Thank you all for the support. I now realize I've been manipulated, gaslighted, and emotionally mistreated by my entire family for years. I'll make an update post on what happens, and yes, I am involving the police. I can't tell you all how grateful I am to finally grow a spine and stop making excuses for their toxic BS. Thank you all. Update. Well, the basic rundown is that my sister apologized after Joy, my cousin, told her what she did was wrong and forgave me and gave my stuff to Joy to mail it back. I reported theft to the police. My entire family has been calling me and Joy names and screaming at us through calls, so it's no contact for both of us. I'll try to keep you all updated on what happens next. Wait, your sister effectively steals your Switch, phones you to brag about said theft, and somehow your mother thinks you're the jerk for snapping back? Yeah, no, that's not how this works. No wonder your sister is struggling to make friends. Hard, not the jerk. Yeah, that's what I'm also thinking. OP's sister stole from OP, and mom was like, "I didn't give her any candy, she's just a kid, leave it alone." What's wrong with her? Correct their mistake. OP's sister doesn't have any remorse about her actions. I also agree with not the jerk. Am I the jerk for making my daughter sit in her room while the rest of us have snacks? I work 14-hour days on Saturdays, so I picked up food on my way home so I don't have to cook, and so pick up snacks for the kids too. Usually sweet treats that last them all week. Every Friday, I ask what they want. My two younger kids, who are 10 and 7, give me their list. My daughter, however, 14, always tells me she doesn't want anything. She has all of Friday and can message me at work all of Saturday if she changes her mind. Every week, like clockwork, she insists she doesn't want anything, multiple times, and then every week she'll huff and start crying because she doesn't have anything. My 10-year-old is really sweet and will instead give her his, so he doesn't have anything for the rest of the week. He will then end up sharing with his younger sister. This upsets me. No matter what I do punishment-wise, she won't quit her behavior. She will cry incessantly and claim I'm favoring them. Both kids get really upset whenever anyone cries, so it's just a cycle. Last Saturday, she started again. I'd had a particularly stressful day and said she could either shut up or put up, or take herself to her room. She continued to whine, so I marched her to her room. She was pretty shocked, but stopped crying. My younger two and I ate our snacks. They were initially kind of upset, but after I explained a little, they were happy to eat. My wife was upset, but didn't say anything. Every night after I get in, we have our sweet treat. Every night, oldest starts whining, and so I send her to her room. Today, my wife blew up at me over it, saying she has a right to be upset, and that I should just buy her snacks anyway, rather than forcefully single her out each night. I disagree. She's a big girl. She can ask for snacks if she wants them, not manipulate her younger brother into giving his up. Overall, it's created a huge rift. I will admit her behavior has been much, much better this week, but I'm now thinking she may just be hiding from me rather than behaving. I don't know if I went too far with it or not. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. She's old enough to tell you what she wants, and she shouldn't just take snacks from her younger siblings. OP. That's what I'm thinking, but I'm still unsure with the backlash I've received. Have you asked her why she keeps refusing? Probably because she's self-conscious about eating junk food, like many girls her age, and is handling it badly by pretending to herself she doesn't want this stuff. Then she craves it when everyone else is having some. It's not that unusual or deep. I'd do what wife said and just buy extra snacks each week. With kids, you have to pick your battles. If she is otherwise a good kid who knows how to advocate for herself, why make this into a thing? Not the jerk, because you warned her and asked what she wanted, but now that you've made your point, you need to start to let this go. My 14-year-old son does this exact same thing. We drive an hour each way to visit my mother most Sundays. Sometimes we will stop and eat a sit-down meal on the way back. But if I'm extra tired, we will just swing through a drive-through fast food place. Anytime we go through a drive-through, he always says the same thing. He's fine and doesn't want anything. I mean always. It's annoying, because I know that once he smells the French fries or sees the Frosty, he will end up wanting it, and then I'll end up giving mine away. Because, you know, that's what moms do. So I simply don't ask him anymore. I got tired of the cycle. We just buy him whatever I think he's going to want, and he's going to be happy with it. There's only been once or twice that part of his meal doesn't get eaten, so we aren't wasting food or throwing away money. Just accept that your daughter is going through a phase, and as long as she's well behaved for everything else, don't let this little thing turn into a huge conflict. This Saturday, just pick her up a treat for the week, no matter if she asks for one or not. Kids aren't mature enough to always wisely pick and choose their battles, so sometimes we just gotta do it for them. You've made your point, so now move on. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his daughter? Please let us know.
Most importantly of all, are we talking about Hostess snacks or Little Debbie's?
Am I the jerk for demanding my friend pay to clean my house? Here I am with probably the most disgusting am I the jerk I've ever heard of. It's winter, and so we have a humidifier going on in the living room. I had a friend with her 11-year-old over. He wanted to watch a movie, so I put on Disney Plus, and his mom and I went to talk in the kitchen. We ended up stepping outside so I could show her what my plans were for our garden this spring. She's really into homesteading and had great advice. When we were done, we went back in the house and eventually went back to the living room. It smelled really weird in there, and I have a very sensitive nose. It kind of smelled like pee, so I wondered if my cats had peed in there somewhere, but they were all in hiding because we had people over. It really bothered me, and I kept investigating before I realized the blue water holders of the humidifier were green. I pulled it out, and it smelled like pee. I was talking out loud while doing all of this, and her son was basically like,
Yeah, I peed in that. I think it's really cool how it makes my pee just disappear.
to which I immediately wanted to throw up. I was stunned and so disgusted, and the mom was like shocked. She excused herself, and her kid left. It turns out he has a humidifier in his room to help with his chapped lips and dry nose, and he's been using it as a toilet for months. I threw my humidifier away and realized I never wanted to go into my living room again because it stinks all over the room. The mom asked if there was anything she could do to make it up to me and offered to buy me a new humidifier, but I said I'm fine with just never owning another humidifier. But I would really appreciate it if she could split with me or pay for the cost to have my living room professionally cleaned. I want the carpet, sofa, and drapes steamed clean, the wall clean, and every nook and cranny cleaned. The idea of even walking into my living room makes my skin crawl. She said that was too much, and she can just buy me a new humidifier. She didn't plan on doing any cleaning to her son's room. She kind of sees it as a non-issue. I'm so disgusted, but I feel like she should at least split the cost of the professional cleaning. She's refusing and calling me the jerk for trying to take advantage of the situation to get my living room cleaned. We're kind of in a standoff, and I'm wondering if I'm being the jerk here. Is this really asking for too much? Not the jerk. Splitting the cleaning cost, assuming it wouldn't cost this friend more than $100 to $200, seems pretty reasonable to me, especially when you're not asking for the humidifier to be replaced. Half is honestly a generosity. OP said $350 total, and I'd be so mortified and happy that it only costs that much. I see no reason to be cheap about it. He said the mother is financially stable. Kid has his own room, and from what I can tell lives in a house, her being into homesteading. The kid is 11 years old. That's 6th grade, middle school. That kid has some issues going on, and she needs to take some responsibility. Not just for OP, but for the kid too. Cost does not matter. She knew her son did this disgusting crap. That right there makes her the jerk. But to then do it in someone else's home and not be bending over backwards to make it right is just… there are no words. This is beyond disgusting. He was nice offering to split it. She 100% is responsible. Not the jerk, OP. I think you're being far too kind. Entitled Mom gets banned from the theme park for a huge tantrum. Hi everyone. I've been dying to post this story from my time working at a theme park forever now, and I finally have enough karma to do so. Hope you guys enjoy. A little backstory. I worked at a theme park on the events team. We have events around seasonal periods, and they're always themed. At almost every event, we have a competition build, a scavenger hunt, and other things for kids to do while they're in the park besides rides. This particular event was in January of 2018, and I was working the competition build. The way our competition build works is these kids get a Lego base plate to build everything on. The two rules we have is that nothing can hang off the edge of the base plate and the build can't be taller than a foot. This is what our entitled mom uses as her leverage. I had just returned from lunch and I saw that somebody had built an amazing build. It was a dragon that had a moving tail, arms, and a head. It had lots of detail and followed the theme. It was definitely going to win. We were only open for about another hour and we didn't think anybody else could build something good enough in that time frame. Enter our entitled mom. She had 2 small kids who started building at our competition. Like we normally do, we were talking to the kids and the mom trying to give them a great experience. The dad jokingly said to us, "You know when you see builds like that, the dragon, it's like why even try? But hey, if the kids are having fun, so be it." Entitled mom finally sees the dragon build. "Oh wow, he must have brought pieces from home." Me. "Actually, he used all the pieces we have on the table." Entitled mom then proceeded to look at the dragon very intensely. When I see her reaching out to touch it, I stop her. Me. "Please don't touch other people's builds, ma'am. We don't want them to break."
I'm not touching, just looking.
I keep watching her just to make sure she doesn't do anything else, but she then pulls out her phone and takes pictures of the entire build. After taking the pictures, she walks over to her sons. Entitled mom.
Don't worry, boys. That build is disqualified anyways. Its pieces hang over the edge.
The piece she's referring to is the moving tail. When you fold the tail, it didn't hang over the edge, but when you unfolded it, it would hang over the edge. When she took her pictures, she unfolded the tail. My coworker folded the tail back up and moved the dragon build to the back of the table so she couldn't reach it. After a few minutes, Entitled Mom comes over to us and demands we find the pieces that the kid used when he built the dragon. Our Lego pieces that we use for competition builds are a mix of hundreds of Lego kits. There is absolutely no guarantee of any type of pieces. The piece she was referring to looked like an elephant tusk. Entitled Mom:
Find my babies these pieces now. They need them.
Me: I will try my best, ma'am, but those small pieces normally fall to the bottom of our bins, and there's no guarantee we have any more.
I don't care. Find them. We want to use them.
Me and my coworker spent the next few minutes digging through these large gray tote bins filled with thousands of Lego pieces just to try and find a tiny piece that is smaller than a pencil eraser. We found some pretty cool pieces that we tried to give to the kids. Me: Hey guys, we couldn't find the pieces you wanted, but we found these super cool ones. Do you want to use these? Entitled Kid 1:
No, we want the ones that are on the dragon.
Entitled Kid 2:
Yeah, it's not fair he brought his own pieces from home.
Entitled Mom:
You're making my babies upset. Since we can't use the pieces we brought from home, can we use the pieces from inside?
We were outside a building that had more Legos inside. Now, the pieces that were inside were thick, dirty bricks, no specialty pieces. Plus, they didn't belong to my department. Me: Sorry ma'am, those pieces don't belong to the events team. We can't use those. Plus, none of those bricks are the type of pieces you would want either.
This is so unfair. My babies aren't gonna win, and it's all your fault.
After this, I kind of shut down. I walked away to talk to some other kids who weren't little brats. We had about 15 minutes before we were going to close the competition. During this time, my boss came to help us start closing. When she arrived, I let her know about our Entitled Mom. Now, I love my boss. I have worked with her for a very long time. She's the main reason why I haven't quit yet. My boss had an issue with entitled parents, especially parents that put other kids down to bring their kid up. After I let my boss know that she had been touching the dragon build, she stood in front of the table and blocked the dragon build. Again, Entitled Mom decided to try and touch the build. Boss: Please don't touch other people's builds. Entitled Mom:
I'm not. I'm just looking.
Did you know this build is disqualified? Boss: Even if it was, we don't like to tell kids that their build was disqualified and break their hearts. Entitled Mom did not like this. She went back to taking pictures, but not of the build, but she started taking pictures of us. My boss, being very sarcastic, told her to make sure she gets her good side. Me and my coworker jokingly posed while she took pictures of us. The time hit for us to close, and instead of Entitled Mom leaving like the other families did, she sat there and watched us.
When do they come out and judge them?
Boss: You will be notified by email only if you win. Normally when we close, we put away all the Legos and take apart all the builds on the table after selecting a winner. Since Entitled Mom wanted to sit there and watch us, we had to carry this giant table with all the builds on it inside the building and into an employee-only room, just so we can take them apart. We kept going outside to continue cleaning up, and Entitled Mom kept watching us. She followed us around and videotaped everything. I assume her husband went somewhere with her kids because they were gone. After we moved everything inside, we took pictures of the dragon and of her brat's builds. My boss called security and let them know about her stalking us. She also contacted guest services and let them know of her behavior so that she couldn't go up there and get free stuff. While we were taking apart the builds, guest services radioed us. They already knew the lady we were talking about by name. They said she had caused several issues in the park in the years prior. She was an annual pass holder, and her behavior today put more points against her annual pass, and she was a half a point away from being banned. After all the builds were taken apart, we decided to pull the dragon registration form as the winner. My boss looked at the slip and laughed. Boss: The builder of the dragon has already won a competition build, so he can't win again. The sad thing is, Entitled Mom's kids built some really cute stuff, and had Entitled Mom not acted the way she did, her kids would have won. As of now, 2021, I no longer work at this theme park, but the Entitled Mom has been permanently banned due to her behavior. My Karen sister demands I adopt her kids. My sister, 31 female, was recently diagnosed with brainstem glioma. Apparently it's big and untreatable due to the location. I'm not sure how long she has, but most likely it will shorten her lifespan by a significant amount. Apparently, she's already experiencing some bad symptoms. My sister has 3 kids, a newborn and a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old. She asked me to take them once she passes on. No, we don't have family, and her ex-husband wants nothing to do with the kids since she had cheated on him for years with many men and they aren't his. She doesn't know who the dad is. Personally, I, 25 female, am child-free. My husband, 25 male, is child-free as well. I told her no for the following reasons. 1. Since we are both child-free, it would be unfair to ask my husband to make this kind of sacrifice. We both agreed to no kids when we got married. To change something like that generally means a divorce. 2. I am atheist. My sister wants me to raise them religious and to know God and take them to church. No. 3. I live in a different country where English is not the primary language. I can't teach a 6-year-old a new language when they don't know English well. 4. 6-year age gap means we didn't really grow up together, and the memories I do have, she was always awful to me, like cynical. And after she moved out at 18, we haven't talked once besides at my parents' funeral. I don't even know her kids, let alone her. She cried and called me awful, but it's my life, and ultimately I get to be selfish with it. A kid isn't an 18-year commitment, it's lifelong, and one I have decided not to take. She cheated with multiple different men and lost her husband. I don't think it's my job to swoop in and save her from consequences of her own actions. I don't feel like I owe her anything. Other people disagree. Friends of hers, whom I've never met, have been reaching out to me and calling me at all hours to leave nasty voicemails, saying I need to step up as a sister, but I just feel like she's trying to use me as her ticket out to passing and not feeling guilty. I'm going to edit so I don't have to continue to say this. I have offered to pay for DNA kits and anything else she needs to help find the fathers of these kids. She doesn't want to. Last edit. I will not be taking in the kids. It's not because I want to teach my sister a lesson or because they are less than for being a product of an affair. I brought it up because I know everyone would ask, where's the father? It's because my sister is a stranger. I haven't talked to her in over 10 years. I've never met her or her kids, and I don't want kids. My husband, yes, we talked, would leave. Realistically, it wouldn't work out. With his income, I wouldn't be able to afford the kids anyways. I'm child-free, not just because I'm selfish, like so many of you suggest, but because I have mental health issues that would prevent me from ever being a good parent. I have OCD. Not like I keep my house clean OCD, but where I need to shut a door several times until it's completely shut, or noises like dripping water drives me insane. Imagine having a newborn when sounds can drive you mentally insane. It's debilitating. My sister didn't deserve to pass on, and her kids don't deserve their fate. But realistically, their unbiological father is the one who needs to step up, not me. To those of you who said I'm the jerk, but then let me ask you, why aren't you adopting? Why aren't you fostering? Why aren't you making sure you get kids out of the system? Get off your high horse. Not the jerk. I feel bad for your sister, but now is the time to buy some ancestry DNA kits in order to search for those kids' fathers. And for the people messaging OP to step up and take the kids in if they really cared. It seems like our friends should be better candidates than an estranged sister who has no relationship with the kids. But then again, their friends would rather be flying monkeys than to step up. So, your sister is religious, but cheated on her husband and has 3 different baby daddies? How does that work? Not the jerk. You aren't obligated to take on parenting kids for any reason. The rest of the vitriol in this post was pretty unnecessary. That said, regardless of how you feel about your sister, she is a mother who's passing on and is trying to deal with all that entails, and also making sure her kids will be cared for. I don't think that has anything to do with guilt and everything to do with doing what any mother would do in this situation. Not the jerk. You didn't sign up to take on our kids. My husband and I are child-free, but we have godchildren that would be entrusted to us if anything happened to their parents. We chose that, but if we hadn't, there is no way we would just agree to it. Just because you're family doesn't mean you're obligated to do anything for anyone. If you do something, it should be because you chose to. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his sister? Please let us know. My husband stole $6,000 from my account to spend on golf clubs. I'm a nurse and have been working more hours for the past 6 months to be able to save money to fix the ceiling in our house. I've saved up $8,000 in my account, and since my husband hasn't worked since 2020, I'm trying to balance rent and utility payments. My husband is a golf enthusiast, and so are his friends. Only difference is that all of his friends are well off, and they can afford expensive golfing gear and trips. They mentioned wanting to go on a golfing trip next week and invited my husband, but he initially refused. Though he really wanted to go, but complained about how his friends bought fancy new golfing gear. while all he has is his old gear. He asked if I could lend him $6,000 so he could buy a set of golfing clubs, but I refused because $6,000 for a set of clubs is crazy expensive, especially for someone who doesn't work. He got upset and accused me of holding his employment over his head when he couldn't help it. Anyway, I thought we were over this argument, but I had discovered that he had pulled the $6,000 out of my account and purchased the set behind my back. I went home and exploded on him. He swore he'd return the money once he gets home from the trip, but I told him he had no right to take the money and spend it on a set of golf clubs while the ceiling needs fixing. He said the ceiling doesn't require $6,000 either, but the kid's room was affected too. I demanded that he return the set or pay me the $6,000 right then and there. He told me I was being unfair to him and that he's feeling stuck because his friends can afford to buy whatever, while he's being yelled at for wanting something for himself for once. I told him to get a job and buy himself whatever. He tried to tell me he'll pay me when he finds a job, which is after he gets back from his trip, but I refused. He kept begging me to let him just go on the trip and we'll figure it out later on, but I said no. If it wasn't for something as important as the ceiling, I would have maybe waited, but he's saying that I'm controlling of his life. Edit. First of all, I'm getting too many comments. I'm too overwhelmed to respond. People that are suggesting I return the clubs myself, I can't because he never brought them to the house. I've never seen them and I don't know where he's hiding them. I suspect his brother's house, but I'm on really bad terms with him and can't go to his house. So the argument now is just him pushing to get me to stay quiet until he gets back from the trip, but I'm putting my foot down and refusing. Not the jerk. This is a massive red flag. He stole from you. $6,000 is a lot of money, and if he's not working, how on earth is he going to pay you back? The fact that you're working your butt off to repair the ceiling, which is a major need, and he thinks that golf clubs are far more urgent than home repairs, really shows how childish he is. By her picking up even more shifts at work probably, I can't get over how much of a jerk this guy is. He stole the $6,000 from OP's account. Yep, if it's not a joint account, then OP needs to report this to the bank and police, kick the deadbeat out, and let him face the consequences. She needs to set up a new account for herself at a different bank. Then she needs to refuse to pay for his greens fees and pretty much all recreational activities out of her paycheck. By the way, how's he paying for his golf trip? He's going to be complaining about her the whole time he's away. Finally, she needs to talk to a trusted counselor, friend, minister, or colleague and inquire if they think divorce is a reasonable course of action. Not the jerk. Please get yourself a divorce attorney ASAP. Your husband hasn't worked in 2 years and thinks $6,000 golf clubs are a reasonable purchase? That alone makes me deeply question his judgment. But the fact that he then stole your money to buy them is beyond the pale. This man is a selfish, unemployed, when literally everyone is hiring, thief, and you clearly can't trust him or his judgment. Lawyer up and get this jerk out of your life. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know.
Tell homeboy he might want to try another sport. Golf probably is not the best idea for a broke deadbeat.
I do not need you staying here with me answering phone calls or processing customers for the rest of the shift. Context. I used to work at a major supermarket in the online grocery department. This happened when I was about 7 months in this position, and about this time, the next stage of lockdown had arrived, which meant that everyone in the community was scared of getting sick and didn't want to actually walk into the grocery store to shop. Thus, all of these folks placed online orders for either pickup or delivery. Due to this exceptional demand, our bosses decided to have 20 order slots available to customers per hour for pickup. I worked in the pickup team, and the delivery team was outsourced to a third-party company. Anyways, we have a couple of new colleagues join us, and one of them in particular is of a very young age, around 3 years younger, who also happens to be a micromanager and essentially a jerk to work with. We'll call him Andy. Andy loves to go on his phone all the time. Mind you, I'm only post-secondary now, and this happened in early 2021. In our team, we have a couple roles which are assigned to staff on a daily basis. Sometimes the roles change, but generally they stay the same. Per our specific store policy, there are supposed to be 2 persons in the home area of the team at all times answering customer calls and gathering all the necessary bins for a person's order. Note that role is given to generally more tenured persons, unless they request otherwise, and requires additional training from the department manager. One person is responsible for taking out the groceries to the customer's vehicle, and the rest of the staff are usually assigned to collect the individual items off the store shelves per customer's order. Story. One day, I come into work, and I'm working a full shift, 8 hours. It happens that I'm working with newer staff only, and Andy is also working. There is no role assignment sheet out on that day, so no specific roles were assigned. I decide, since I'm more tenured and have had the necessary training, that I would stay in the home area of the team. Andy comes up to me and says that the manager had assigned him to stay for his shift, and he requested for me to help collect items off the shelves for the rest of the shift. Note here, it's difficult to be using your phone while collecting customer items, so ideally, you want to stay in the home base to use your phone. Me. You haven't had the training from the manager yet, and I'm more tenured. Andy.
No, I have had the training. Please go and collect items. I do not need you staying here with me answering phone calls or processing customers for the rest of the shift.
Me. Are you sure? All of the order slots are full for the rest of the shift. Andy.
Yes, it's fine. Please go and collect items.
Me. Okay. Malicious compliance. So I go and start collecting items for future customers' orders, and return to base after a run, hour 1, to drop off the containers with items and grab new containers. You can only take so many containers in a cart at once. Andy seems to be managing fine, so I don't disturb him and go out for a second run. I come back, hour 2, and Andy asks me to take over his customer phone call. At this point, customer is arguing over something trivial, but I tell him, "You told me you don't need me to stay here for the entire shift, so I'm going for another run." Andy hesitantly agrees, and I continue with my third run. I come back, hour 3, and there's a queue of about 7 post-it notes. Anticipated customer wait time of 35 minutes. Yikes, with customer orders on it. And Andy is on the phone with a customer. Post-it notes were used when we didn't have time to print off proper order summaries. Additionally, the policy for waiting times is a maximum of 5 minutes from the time they call. He sees me and asks me to help him process orders, as well as obtaining the required container so the staff responsible for taking orders out could do so in a timely manner. Once again, I tell him, "You told me not to stay here and do any of the home base's tasks. I'm going for another run." I come back, hour 4, and there's a long line of 23 post-it notes with customer orders on it. Anticipated customer wait time of 2 hours. Big yikes. And this time, he pulls on my arm as soon as I come in and asks me to help him answer phone calls and process orders. But once again, I refused, referencing what he told me. He let out a massive sigh and called the manager's extension. At this point, I went out to do another run. Halfway, hour 4.5, through my run, I'm interrupted by the manager on duty. Our team's manager had gone home for the evening. He asks me to come with him to help Andy in our area to clean up the backlog, as at this point, customers were waiting well over 3.5 hours. Major problem. I walk back into the home base, and the manager questions me of why I wasn't staying in the home base, taking care of phone calls and customer orders. I tell him the full truth, specifically that Andy had strictly noted that our team manager assigned him and him only to be in the home base managing these tasks, and Andy had sent me out to collect customer items for the rest of the shift in its entirety. Andy rebutted with the fact that he did not say this and that he had asked me to help him multiple times and I had blatantly refused. I told both the manager and Andy that I'll be helping to clear the backlog and then going back to doing runs. And at this point, I empathize with our customers waiting for 3.5 hours. At the end of my shift, we finally managed to catch up a decent amount, and I did end up staying about 30 minutes overtime to reschedule the customers scheduled for later in the day to the next day's morning slots, double booking the next day's slots, while Andy went home already. As a courtesy, I gave each customer that had to be rescheduled a $20 voucher. There were 44 total rescheduled customers. Just as I clocked out, I bumped into the manager, and he tells/rants to me what a crap show today was. I tell him, "You may want to look at the CCTV of our home base. Have a good rest of your night." Fallout. It so happened that I was taking 2 weeks of leave that day, and after the leave, when I went back, I noticed every shift that Andy was doing runs and never staying in the home base. Turns out, the manager on duty looked at the CCTV that very same night and heard very clearly what Andy had told me. Conferring with our team manager, they canceled his administrator permissions on the order processing computer, which he had begged our team manager for over 2 weeks, as well as giving him a written warning. However, that didn't seem enough, since while I was away, Andy decided to do the same thing to another staff member and ended up getting a second and essentially final written warning. Plus, he made it on the frequent monitoring list of every manager. At 3 written warnings, your employment is immediately terminated. The days and shifts that followed after were very pleasant, as there was not a single peep from Andy when he came into work. He directly started collecting customer items without asking. Edit 1. Update after I called my friend who still works there. 1. Andy still works there, still has his admin privileges revoked, and is solely collecting customer items. Printed with the assignment sheet. Not anticipated to change. Generally, role assignments are written in on the day of. 2. Former team manager was laid off in January 22 for mistreating the department, including scheduling staff outside of their availability slots, as well as multiple incidences of not following policy. 3. Our team's voucher budget increased 50% for this calendar year because of worse incidents that happened after I left the company. Am I the jerk for refusing to babysit someone who accused me of stealing? The title doesn't make much sense, and I don't know how else to word it. Okay, so basically, I used to babysit this family with deaf kids, which was perfect because I'm deaf. One day, I had to sleep over because the parents were at a meeting. Their daughter loved jewelry, so they asked me to hide the jewelry box, which I did. The next day, I rode the bus with them to school and went home because I had the day off. Later that day, my parents said that the parents said that their jewelry box was missing, and I told them where I hid it. They couldn't find it, and I was the first to blame because 1. I had access to their house, and 2. I knew where it was. My parents were on my side, luckily, and defended me, and now these people were blaming me for taking it. I did get dragged to court and was proven innocent. When it came to evidence, we didn't have much, so we asked to see the neighbor's footage of that night, but he wouldn't let us. They did eventually get the evidence and found the guy who did it. They apologized, but I didn't want to babysit anymore. It's been a while since then, and they can't find a babysitter with any ASL knowledge and keep begging me to come back. Edit, for anyone wondering, I'm 15. Edit. Hello there, this is OP's mom. I want you guys to hear me and his father's side of this. We never believed when this lady first called us and said that he stole. He is our child, and we would go to the moon and back to prove him innocent, and we might have lost the case if it wasn't for the footage we eventually got. I do not trust that lady. Our son, OP, is a smart kid, and we know whatever decision he decides to make will be the right one for him. Edit. Guys, it was the neighbor's footage, not the family I babysat. Edit again. Thank you for the advice. I don't need any more reasons why I shouldn't go back. Your advice is appreciated, but it's done its duty. As I've stated earlier, I'm never going back to that family ever again. I've been advertising my skill set all over and found a family. I apparently did well with the interview, and they offered $25 an hour to start. Me and my parents talked and made the decision that, if it is the best course of action, getting a restraining order. Thank you all so much for your support, and it was very much appreciated. Not the jerk. They accused you of theft. They broke trust, and if you don't feel comfortable with them, don't feel guilted into going back. Or else, demand they set up a baby camera or something, or put away everything that could conceivably go missing under lock. I've been wrongly accused of stealing before. It's no joke. Am I the jerk for leaving a bad review on a facility director I bullied 12 years ago? I was a bratty teenager. I treated others unfairly. I'm not proud of it. After graduating high school, I didn't have a clue on what to do, so I went to a community college and chose a program that sounded interesting. Because I'm very outgoing, I made friends pretty quick. People found me hilarious. The main reason I was so funny was I really ripped into one of the shy girls in class. Obviously, I had issues with my security at the time and have gone through therapy. During this period, though, I didn't have the right guidance. I knew to make friends, we had to find a common ground. She was just an easy target. It should be noted, I think she suffered from anxiety before the program. The more classmates and I laughed at her or snubbed her, the more anxious she became, to where the instructor told her this wasn't the career for her because she wasn't functioning to her full ability. It doesn't matter, I know, but I regret it. No one will believe me, but I did experience karma and lots of it after all of this. Now, My fiance and I decided we wanted to adopt a pet, and one of the animal rehabilitation centers were listing an adorable dog. We decided to meet her. First, we had to talk with the facility's director, which, surprise, surprise, is the girl that I bullied. We recognized each other pretty quickly. I don't know if it was the past or her being so shy, but she was very uneasy through our conversation. She seemed in a good spot overall. Married, she has kids, obviously successful career, which was a relief to me. I hoped she had moved on from everything. I did admit to her I was sorry for how things were all those years ago, but she had obviously flourished beyond that. She smiled and said, yes, she has. I'm relieved and believe the past is in the past. An hour later, the fiancé gets a call saying we were not approved for the next steps of possibly meeting the dog. Obviously, I was wrong in my assumption. I reviewed the facility and called her out by name because I know very well there isn't anything that makes us unfit owners. My fiancé doesn't agree with me though. In fact, he says I'm only fueling the fire, and maybe if I hadn't been such a jerk, we wouldn't have been rejected. Am I the jerk? Update. Okay, do you guys not see the irony here? I found so many messages in my DMs and in the comment section calling me every name in the book and wishing bad things on me. To defend a victim of bullying, you become a bully? I showed these comments to my fiancé, and no, he doesn't agree with any of the judgments. After cooling down, he realized it was petty and childish of her. She is the owner of the facility. All adoptions are decided by her. When I mentioned her flourishing, it was because I was surprised, but very happy she had moved on from something that happened 12 years ago. It was great to see. No, I wasn't making it by myself. Also, when we talked, she mentioned how she would have hated being in that kind of career that program was designed for. Getting booted out made her realize her true passion was for animals. I'm not trying to defend my actions. I'm saying I didn't completely ruin her career path like some suggest. Wait, so you bullied her again? Clearly you haven't grown up at all. Massive, you're the jerk. What an entitled jerk. Unfortunately for you, being a horrible bully does in fact make you an unworthy owner. That's her prerogative to decide. If you don't like it, too bad. It's 100% your fault. She was a bratty teenager, and now she's a bratty adult. You're the jerk. You effectively said to this woman, sorry I was a horrible human, but it looks like you've done fine anyway. Dismissed the harm you did in the same breath as apologizing for it, and expected her to place another living being in your care? Ha, no. And then you publicly blame her for what sounds to me like a perfectly reasonable professional judgment. Yikes. If the facility manager didn't know you, she might still not have moved you forward towards adopting a dog. Knowing you as she does, it was her duty to halt the process. You sound like you need to work on you a lot more before you try to take responsibility for a dependent soul. OP doesn't even admit to apologizing for being a horrible human being. Just said she apologized for how things were. You haven't changed, and you haven't learned a thing. Do you honestly think just saying, hey, sorry about all that, but looks like you're doing okay, so no harm, no foul, right? Fix the damage you caused? Don't you understand the director turned you down because she absolutely knows you have the potential for cruelty, malice, and selfishness? You have it in you to treat a person like they are an object for your amusement, which makes it entirely possible you'd mistreat a helpless animal even more. She made the right call. Your fiancé was right too. You're the jerk. Don't like The Simpsons? No coffee for you. This story happened 30 years ago. As many of you know, The Simpsons is the longest-running scripted show, edit, on primetime television. In the late 80s and early 90s, it was controversial, with many high-profile people denouncing it for what they deemed to be inappropriate characters. Someone was always in a rage about the latest episode and the things Bart or Homer said or did. Well, at the time, my sister was married to a guy named Bob, who was old before his time. He was also deeply conservative, personally, socially, fiscally, and politically, opinionated, autocratic, and overbearing. One of those has to be the smartest guy in the room types. At a family gathering at my parents' house, we were sitting around after dinner, and I recounted a funny line from the show. Bob grew angry and started fulminating about the show. That show is so darn stupid. That Homer guy screaming and carrying on all the time. It drives me nuts. If I had my way, it wouldn't be on TV. I asked him if he ever even watched it. No, I wouldn't waste my time. It's a stupid cartoon that shouldn't be on the air. I thought about what he said for a moment. Oh, because you don't like it, I shouldn't be allowed to watch it? Darn right. If I had my way, it wouldn't even be allowed on TV. Really? That makes sense to you? Now, if there was anything Bob hated more than The Simpsons, it was anyone questioning or challenging him. If he said it, it was right. So of course he doubled down. Yes, it makes perfect sense. I'm not the only one who says it. If I was in charge, that show wouldn't be on the air. He was getting angrier and red-faced at being forced to defend his position. Okay, I thought, if that's the way you think it should be. I got up and grabbed his cup of coffee from him, went to the sink and dumped it. What the heck did you do that for? He yelled. I don't like coffee, I said. I'm not the section leader? Then why should I teach? When I was a high school junior, I was second chair for the second violins and orchestra. My stand partner, the section leader, was this sophomore who I'll call Ben. Ben was an amazing violinist, and he knew it. He would frequently tell me that I was the only violinist in the section that he respected, which rubbed me the wrong way because he was actively insulting my friends. When we did sectionals, Ben would take advantage of our director being in a separate room to tear down everyone's confidence and basically just be a huge jerk about everything. During the second trimester, he wasn't able to take orchestra, and I became the section leader. This may be self-congratulatory, but every person in the section came to me privately and told me that they much preferred me over Ben because I actually respected them. I made a point to use constructive criticism over straight criticism, and I admitted that I don't have a lot of free time to practice, so I understood that they couldn't dedicate their lives to high school orchestra. Third trimester, Ben came back. I was once again second chair, and he was first. He would make the weirdest comments like, "Hey girl, you miss me?" To which I would just roll my eyes and keep practicing. Despite these comments, he seemed to have mellowed out. Unfortunately, he didn't. First sectional, he went right back to yelling and degrading the second violins. I would often tell him to stop, and I would bring up how much progress we had made while he was gone. After I had mediated, he quieted down. At least until I tried to explain some notation in the sheet music. He started yelling at me and kept repeating, "I'm the section leader. The only person that knows how things work is me." Cue malicious compliance. I started slacking off during sectionals. I would play with the full orchestra, and I did individual practice, but when we were separated, I completely ignored what was going on. Ben was obviously frustrated, but he couldn't really do anything. Until one day, he got to the notation that I was trying to explain before. He had no idea what he was talking about, and so he asked me to explain it. My response? "Sorry, Ben, but you're the section leader. I obviously don't know how to do anything." Ben stormed out and didn't show up to class again. I found out 2 weeks later that he had quit orchestra. I felt kind of bad about it, but that guilt went away quickly when I could hear the vast improvements my section made without being verbally mistreated constantly. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard.
Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.